Good evening, everyone. My name is David Lepofsky. I'm chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Toronto District School Board, and I'm honored to call to order tonight's monthly meeting. Before we get into the formalities, or the festivities, I should say, I'd like to first call on my wonderful vice chair, Jordan Glass, sitting to my right, your left, to do the land acknowledgement, and please rise if you are able.
We acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Okay, thank you. Please be seated. We have a couple of formalities to go through before we get to the hearing from people who've come to speak to us. So please indulge me for a couple of minutes. I need to ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Would somebody bring a motion to approve the agenda? Leo, a seconder. Nora, all in favor? We good?
I think so. It looked unanimous to me. Leanne calls that.
Leanne, we're okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a conflict of interest to disclose in relation to tonight's meetings, agenda items?
None.
None. I am going to defer approval of the minutes of the March meeting because there are some things that I wanted in there that staff edited out. And I want to see if we can resolve that, and we'll deal with it at our next meeting. So our meeting begins with me making a chair's report. And I want to just take a few minutes of your time because I want to get right to our speakers. Let me begin by thanking everybody for coming here, thanking staff who've got family lives and a busy day job at the TDSB, and they're here in the evening. I want to thank all of the SEAC members who are volunteers, more about them in a minute. And I want to thank you, the presenters who've come to present to us and others to watch. I have invited the provincially appointed supervisor to this meeting. Is Mr. Gupta here in person or online? I'm not seeing any indication. I regret that he is not here. I think it would be very worthwhile for him to hear from you. I also want to update on one matter that'll be of interest. In January, the Director of Education read a statement out about a resumption, but on narrower terms, of a special education review that the board is conducting. I asked for a copy of it, and staff were not prepared to give it to me, that I would have shared with you. I filed a Freedom of Information application for it. The board declined that. They refused to, invoking various exceptions. In that application, I asked for the whole document from which the Director of Education read. I have today mailed in a new Freedom of Information application, which simply asks for the pages that were read aloud to us. I regret having to go through these steps, but if we have to, I will. Let's proceed to tonight's activities. For those of you who've come to speak to us, who the heck is SEAC? What's a SEAC? Under provincial regulations, every publicly funded school board must appoint a Special Education Advisory Committee, or SEAC. Members are really drawn from three categories. They are representatives of associations of parents of a child with special education needs. And we have people here from various of those representatives. I myself represent I'm here representing the Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children, for example. And we are nominated by our organization, and the TDSB accepts that nomination as they are required to. The second category are parents of children with special education needs within the board community, but who are not representing an organization, they're community representatives. There are also alternative representatives who come to our meeting and can speak at any time, but only vote if the main rep from their association is not here. Some of them are here today, either in person or online. And finally, a certain number of trustees can serve on our committee. We had 3. They have been removed from operational, any of their operational powers by the province, and therefore they are no longer members of this committee. And no employee of the board is allowed to be a member of SEAC according to provincial regulations. And these are all people who volunteer their time. Our job here is to identify for TDSB areas where there would benefit from improvements in how education is delivered to children with disabilities or special education needs. We get right into the nitty-gritty, and it's important to realize the regulation that creates us, it's a provincial law, says that we give advice, I'm paraphrasing, can make recommendations about the development or delivery of special education, including on the special education budget and the special education plan, both of which the board is required to consult us on. We do that by hearing from people like you, from hearing from staff, and from making recommendations. And we have done that. Sometimes our input is given in just formal conversation form. And there are times when we judge something so important that we formulated in a specific recommendation. When there were trustees, we could present them to the trustees. Without the trustees, we can present them to the staff. I have asked the superintendent to be able to speak with him about them as part of longer discussions, but unfortunately there have been decisions made on our recommendations by the supervisor without an opportunity to meet with him and discuss it before he makes a decision. So that's where we are. And we have a shared concern. We have different views on lots of issues, but one shared concern, and that is we want to work together and come up with as strong recommendations and advice as we can to improve education for our kids. Now, let me talk to you about briefly, you're going to wonder, what are we going to do with what you tell us today? Well, what you're going to accomplish are 2 things. There's one thing we can't do. We can't investigate a particular incident. A student was denied something that the family thought they should get, or whatever. That's not our within what we can do. But what can come from this are 2 things. One, we can listen to you all and take from what you've told us recurring patterns and identify areas of priority. We did this 1.5 years ago, and it really helped guide us on what needs to be done. But the second thing is you are going to be talking not only to us as volunteers, but in this room or online are a number of senior TDSB staff. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a moment. And if you're here, feel free informally at the end of the meeting to have a chat with them. It's good to talk with people. But as well, this is a chance for all of us to hear what you have to say. Let me just express a couple of ground rules. These were all communicated with you in advance. I know ground rules sounds a bit stern. It's not meant to be. Number 1, we ask you not to mention any child's name. And in fact, when we call on you, we're going to call on you by your first name and ask you to just identify your first name, just to respect individual privacy. This is a public place, but we don't need to call on you by name for you to know who we're calling on. Second, we ask you not to mention any individual TDSB staff. They're not here to answer. They're not here to respond. And frankly, we don't need to hear a child's name or a staff member's name to learn from what you have to say, whether what you have to say is praiseworthy or expresses concerns. We found this really worked when we did this a year and a half ago. And the third thing is we ask you not to mention the name of a school. And the reason we say that is we don't want indirectly to identify or to make it possible to identify who a child is. Now, I know some of you may be wanting to speak about not the conduct of a school that you thought was needed to improve, but rather a concern that a school is maybe having enrollment reduced or may eventually be closed. I'm not going to be picky, and we all know what those names are. So that is something I'm going to be flexible about to give you a chance to speak, because identifying the school is not in any way going to criticize any of the staff there. To the contrary, I expect from the parents we've heard from in the past, it's to express praise of them. Our members around the table will listen to each of you. To squeeze in you all, I'm asking you to keep to 3 minutes if you can. I'm not going to be brutal, but I want to make sure everyone gets heard. If the meeting needs to go past 9 o'clock, and I suspect it will, we'll keep going. We're going to hear from the people in the room first, just so they can get back home. As well, there is one matter I want to deal with really quickly, and then I'm going to have us introduce people, and then we're going to get on with it. The people from our committee and from staff in the room. And that is this. Our meetings used to be live streamed by the TDSB. The TDSB has been instructed by the province not to do so any longer. We have no indication that TDSB wanted it, likes it. They have to follow those instructions. We understand. That applies only to the conduct of TDSB. However, because this meeting is hybrid, there are some people attending right now on Zoom who are going to be speaking. We were advised only today by TDSB staff that they will not be permitted to be in the Zoom room. They will be in a waiting room until they speak. They will be allowed in to speak to us, and then they will be removed from the room altogether. That is not the approach that I think is appropriate, fair, and respectful. I've notified our concerns, as have a couple of us with staff. I don't want to take up time on it. However, I have written a brief motion, which I'm going to have Jordan read. I know that there's going to be an objection from staff, which I'm prepared to have voiced. And then we are simply going to, I hope, have a mover, a seconder, and a vote. I've received emails from a number of members of the committee all supporting this. So I want to get through this quickly so we can get on to the delegations. Do you want to read the motion, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Whereas TDSB senior officials have told SEAC on the day set for a public forum for hearing the voices of parents that those attending on Zoom must stay in a waiting room until they present, and thus they may not hear any other presenters. And whereas SEAC wishes all presenters at its April 13th, 2026 meeting to be able to hear all other presenters if they wish, just as those attending in person are free to do so. And whereas there is no compelling reason for TDSB to prevent presenters who attend virtually from hearing other presenters, and whereas TDSB should accommodate the many additional burdens that parents of students with disabilities and special education needs often must shoulder, SEAC therefore recommends that TDSB should permit anyone who is remotely participating as a presenter at the April 13th, 2026 TDSB SEAC Hearing Parents' Voices meeting via Zoom to remain in the Zoom meeting to hear other presenters before their turn to speak and after their turn to speak if they wish.
Can I first have a mover of the motion?
Chair, before it's put on the floor, may I speak to the motion?
This is Louise Sarisco, who is the Associate Director of TDSB.
Thank you, Chair Lepofsky. Members of SEAC, I want to, before it's put on the floor, just, and as I shared with David before the meeting and while he was sharing the motion, my interpretation is that this is an operational motion. This speaks to the manner in which we welcome delegates And as such, if approved, I will not, on behalf of staff, be able to action the motion. Thank you.
All right. And my own response is that there is nothing in the regulations that create us, limiting us to not pass motions on anything that staff adjudge to be operational. So I'm prepared to accept it as a motion in order. Could we have a motion, someone to move the motion? Richard, someone to second. Are we prepared to go straight to a vote?
No.
Or are we prepared to go straight to a vote? Does anybody mind if we go straight to a vote?
One quick friendly amendment, if that motion could be brought back up,
Sure.
please. Can't see the motion on the screen yet, but
Sorry, we don't have the motion up. We were just sent the motion a few minutes before the meeting. So I think, Jordan, if you could, thanks, Leanne, read it again as well, Jordan, because it's small on the screen. Thanks.
it is on the screen. I just wanted to say, in the first paragraph, it mentions how the voice, a little bit too big for the screen now, mentions how they'll be in the waiting room and until they present. What it doesn't state is then they will be removed from the meeting and not have the opportunity to see it. I know you've said that, not hear any other presenters, but I
Okay,
think
I'm
why.
prepared to take a friendly amendment that said that they would be in the waiting room until they speak. And Leanne, if you want to take this down, and then removed from the Zoom meeting
Thank you.
after they speak. Totally happy to say extremely friendly amendment from Richard, who's a friend. All in favor? Opposed, if any? All right, I'm gonna, can we treat that as passed? Let us proceed now. I'm gonna have Jordan call each speaker. And because that fan is off, it's getting hotter. So if anybody like me has a suit jacket or sweater on, feel free to take it off because I'm about to. Go for it.
All right. Number one is virtual, and that is Sheldon.
Tell us when Sheldon's on the screen.
All right, Sheldon, you may begin.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to give you a vignette of my daughter's journey in the last year. And it kind of highlights the challenges of being assessed for gifted status when you're not within the TDSB. My daughter joined a TDSB school in grade 4. As she was not in grade 3, she did not have access to the gifted testing. She went through grade 4 and 5 in that TDSB school. And, she went through a series of teachers. They thought she may have ADHD. There were comments that she just was not engaged, but there's really no follow-up for this. So on our own accord, when she was in grade 5, we went to our pediatrician to get tested for ADHD, and she didn't have that. And our pediatrician, who actually is a developmental pediatrician, did a test, a modified test for giftedness, and said, she likely is gifted. He strongly recommends testing within TDSB. Unfortunately, all of this took place as we went into the summer for grade 5 year. And due to the challenges that she had with teachers in that school, some bullying, we were making a decision to pull her out to put her in a smaller school, not knowing that she actually was gifted. We spoke to the principal at her home school, trying to make a decision if to pull her out or keep her. And we were assured that because she was in the TDSB, this was her home school. Even if she left the school, she could have testing done privately, and that would be assessed by the TDSB, and then the ball would be started to get her into a gifted program. We went on our own accord, paid for the gifted testing by a psychologist who was a former TDSB teacher who was recommended by the principal. When we went back to the principal, we were told that the rules had now changed, that she needs to now re-enroll in the TDSB to have that test looked at and then go through the gifted program. So we were now stuck where mid-year in grade 6, we had to make a decision between taking our daughter out of a smaller private school with 18 children, putting her back in a school where she was bullied before with 30 kids in her class simply to be assessed for giftedness. We made a gut-wrenching decision and took her out and put her back in the TDSB. She's just had her IPRC, and she's been deemed gifted. My comment stems from the fact that, one, when you miss that window in grade 3, the opportunity to be retested isn't there. And two, when you're out of the TDSB and you have this testing done, it seems a bit, and in my daughter's case in particular, it seemed a bit counter that the teachers who already knew her when she was there were unable to use this test and then assess her independent of being re-enrolled in the TDSB. So those are my comments that I wanted to make. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sheldon, thank you so much. And I don't want the fact that we're going to move on to people to suggest or imply anyway that we're not listening and taking it very seriously, taking notes, and ready to discuss later.
Number 2 in person, Jennifer.
Good evening, SEAC members and school board staff. Thank you for having me. My name's Jennifer, and I am the mother of a 7-year-old gifted boy who's enrolled in the TDSB. I am here this night to talk to you about the barriers faced by primary age gifted children in the TDSB and to make 2 requests of SEAC in terms of recommended changes to the special education plan. So just to be clear, I am not here to ask you to intervene on my son's case or any operational matters. We are dealing with that separately, but I'm going to give you some background about my son's case because what happened to him is illustrative of the barriers placed by the special education plan and the TDSB's interpretation of that plan for all primary age gifted children. My hope is that with SEAC support, we can remove those barriers going forward so that primary age gifted children can be properly accommodated in the TDSB. So the context. My son was in the fall of grade 1, and he was 6 years old at the time that he underwent a psychological assessment by a licensed psychologist. She administered the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, 5th edition, or the WISC-5, which is the same test used by the TDSB in assessing giftedness. The WISC-5 has been validated scientifically for use in children as young as 6 years old. And his score on the WISC-5 was an full-scale IQ of 140 points, or the 99.6th percentile. His general ability index was 99.5th percentile. The psychologist's conclusion was that the results of the assessment indicate that my son meets the criteria for the gifted exceptionality as defined by the Ontario Ministry of Education. She further stated that an IEP is needed to support him and to ensure his well-being and success. The TDSB's response to this psychological report, which was shared with them, was an absolute refusal to identify him as gifted because of his age and the refusal to provide an IEP. And we are now here almost a year and a half after we had this psychological assessment and provided it to the school, and he still does not have an IEP or an identification. I just want to pause here at this juncture and reiterate what happened here and just emphasize how unimaginable this would be. We have a regulated health professional providing an assessment saying that a child meets the Ministry of Education definition of an exceptionality. And the fact that the TDSB could then refuse to identify that exceptionality until an arbitrary age threshold is frankly shocking. Under Section 8 sub 3 of the Education Act, it states that the minister shall ensure that all exceptional children in Ontario have available to them, in accordance with the Act and regulations, appropriate special education programs and special education services without payment of fees by parents. And for these purposes, the minister shall A, require school boards to implement procedures for early and ongoing identification of the learning abilities and needs of pupils. Our position is that it is a clear violation of the TDSB's duty to provide early and ongoing identification to refuse to identify gifted children until age 8. What they are doing under the guise of their special education plan is the opposite of the early identification required by the Act. It is delayed identification. So my first request in regards to the special education plan is that the age and grade threshold for giftedness identification be removed. The Ministry of Education definition of giftedness is an unusually advanced degree of general intellectual ability that requires differentiated learning experiences of depth and breadth beyond those normally provided in the regular school program to satisfy the level of educational potential indicated. Note that this definition does not include any age or grade thresholds to be met. Thus, the combination of the Ministry of Education definition and the statutory right to early and ongoing identification under the Act means that gifted children have the right to be identified as soon as there are scientifically reliable tests demonstrating their giftedness.
Okay, if you could just wrap up, because I want to just make sure we get on to others. Is there an additional recommendation you've got?
Yes.
Go for it.
So the second recommendation is to clarify that modifications available in IEPs can be from higher or lower grade levels. Because the Ministry of Education policy says that modifications can be above or below age-appropriate grade level expectations, but the position taken by the TDSB has been that modifications can only be from lower grade levels. And this is a barrier to my son, who on the WIAT, the Wechsler Individual Achievement Test, was clearly performing 2 years above his grade level in many areas. So for gifted children in the TDSB, I would like it clarified in the special education plan that modifications in an IEP can include modifications from higher grade levels.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, I have failed to do something I committed to do, and I'm going to correct that failure now. I'd like to just go around the room and very quickly have each of us introduce ourselves. Just indicate whether you're a SEAC member, your name, your association, if you represent one. And in case of staff, could you just give your name, say your staff, and what your job is, what your title is, say, starting with my gentleman to my right.
My name is Jordan Glass. I'm the vice chair, and I'm the one of the representatives for LC2.
Learning Center 2.
Yes.
All right. Going over to my right.
My name is Tracy O'Regan, and I'm the representative for Community Living Toronto.
My name is Aileen Chen. I'm the alternate representative for Community Living Toronto.
Richard Carter, representative, Down Syndrome Association of Toronto.
Nora Green, representative for Inclusion Action in Ontario.
Good evening. My name is Anne Blanchette. I'm the representative for Epilepsy Toronto, Ontario.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Nicholas, and I'm the alternate representative for the Association for Bright Children in Ontario.
My name is Diane Montgomery, and I am the alternate for Inclusion Action Ontario.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nandy Palmer. I'm the Executive Superintendent for Special Education and Inclusion.
Good evening. My name is Louise Sarisco. I'm one of the Associate Directors here at TDSB. Welcome to our delegates and members of the public this evening. And I too, Chair Lepofsky, forgot to mention something important just for you, sir. Jordan has a viewing of a countdown clock of 3 minutes. So every delegate will be timed in at 3 minutes for you, Jordan, to be supporting the chair. And Chair Lepofsky, when you hear a bell, that means the countdown clock has reached 0 so that you can be supporting all delegates. Sorry not to mention that earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Stacy Zucker. I'm the Interim Director of Education.
Good evening. My name is John Paul Ngana. I'm Community Rep for Learning Center 2.
And Leo Lagnato for Autism Ontario.
Everyone?
That's everyone in the room.
And
yeah.
just so for those of you who are new here, this is a bit of a family reunion for all of us because a lot of us since COVID haven't seen each other. All right, our next speaker, please.
Number 3, Katya.
In person?
In person, yes. Sorry.
Before my time begins, can I ask for the indulgence of the committee to go over the time because I was told that it was 5 minutes, and so I actually timed my speech for 5 minutes.
Okay, do what you can do.
Thank you. I can also speed read, but. Good evening, committee members and community. I stand before you with deep sadness and frustration, compelled once again to advocate for my children and for all students with disabilities in our schools. My daughter, now 16, has sensory neural bilateral hearing loss, ADD, and dyscalculia From kindergarten, I fought for her to be placed in a closed classroom, something that should have been obvious, but took over a year of advocacy to obtain. In grade 8, she had to prove her eligibility for the specialized deaf and hard of hearing program in the TDSB, as she was deemed not deaf enough. Since grade 5, she has taken it upon herself to educate her peers, her teachers, and at staff meetings on issues of accommodations and how these do not and cannot make up for the lived experience of what being hard of hearing actually feels like. As a caller on CBC's Metro Morning, I stated that IEPs are not worth the paper they are written on and serve as a mere legal protection for school administrators and boards, but fall short of any quantifiable measure for serving students. I have spent years drafting and redrafting these documents, educating staff and advocating for proper implementation. I have had to purchase visual silent timers, fidget toys, chair bands, neurodivergent friendly planning books, dyslexia font resources, dyscalculia resources, noise canceling headphones, etc., to give to schools in the hopes that they will actually use them. I've provided copies of SMART goals, ADHD specific accommodations, executive function checklists, student, teacher, and parent short and long-term planning tracking sheets with measurable timed results and dated results. Yet none of these crucial methodologies proven to be effective have been implemented to date. My daughter has been horrified by the requirements of DHH students being so low, yet most are not meeting actual grade level curriculum expectations. Lowering the bar creates a learned helplessness and lack of achievement that persists beyond school. These students are far less likely to go on to post-secondary education, more prone to mental illness, addictions, and rely more heavily on government-funded programs for their livelihoods. Lowering expectations is not the answer. Differentiated and direct instruction by qualified professionals is. My son, now 13, should be in grade 7, but has not attended school a single day this year. He has multiple diagnosed disabilities: ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, low processing speed, and memory, each recognized under the law as distinct. Yet the board qualifies these as only one, a learning disability, and will not recognize ADHD or odd DHD as a life-altering disability. This is a charter violation which needs to be addressed. He is bright, very bright, creative, and eager to learn. But the vast majority of his educators have lowered the bar, made the minimal accommodations to meet the board's accessibility threshold, and ensured that he not be a candidate for direct instruction or simply a different way of learning. Despite comprehensive psychoeducational reports and various Orton-Gillingham assessments, as well as his own input about his needs and many resources, articles, and research that have been provided, they have been provided with in order to meet him where he is at, he has been ignored. Staff have falsified diagnostic testing, graded incomplete work, altered grades and comments to best suit the narrative of a student who is not struggling, and denied him critical support such as psychology, OT, CYC intervention, etc. The board claims it provides for all students and creates student success documents and policies around special education, yet will not take accountability for these actions, nor answer to direct pointed questions around tiered placements, diagnostics, staff training, IP implementation, and more. This year, my son should have attended a TDSB alternative school he was accepted into. However, his father blocked this. The board took the position that this is a parental issue and has offered nothing but the suggestion that he return to the same school he has refused since September 4th to attend. No occupational therapy, no social work, psychological services, or child and youth worker intervention, all of which are a part of the board's own policies on at-risk students and mental health concerns. He disclosed suicidal ideation and intrusive thoughts and was ignored. Instead, he was met with pressure to get back to school. They have witnessed a 13-year-old become more and more adamant in their need to be heard and understood, and more affected by the lack of respect and dignity afforded to him in his own lived experiences as a student. The board has abstained from their duty to advocate on his behalf and instead remain neutral when neutrality is not an option, as educators are bound by law to protect and advocate for the well-being of all children. This is neglect. Disabilities requiring sustained research-led special education supports are not rare, yet they are minimized or treated as obstacles. Students who need accommodation are often cast aside, while boards hide behind policy language. The proof is in the outcomes. My daughter's experience shows the failures of specialized programming. My son is expected to simply bounce back in a system that is completely incompatible with his needs. Both my children present as neurotypical for the most part, mainstream students, but their daily struggles are invisible. No child should be pushed through an educational pipeline and made to feel that their talents and skills are merely good enough. I question why gifted program receives immense investment, significantly smaller class sizes, individualized instruction, creativity and innovation, and more funding per student than any other program, while neurodivergent students, many of which are gifted, are relegated to resource rooms and given rudimentary, keep busy tasks. Most neurodivergent students require exactly this to thrive, and yet funding is reserved for the gifted education programs. The lack of accountability, universal instruction tools and methodologies, diagnostic consistency, regular monitored check-ins and case conferences that are not IEP or SST or IPRC meetings, but rather focused on the student and their needs on a regular, timely basis, standardized training and expectations for all educators, not just special education staff, is at the heart of this crisis. If a parent must—
Ask if you wouldn't mind just wrapping
2 seconds.
Sure,
Last
go
sentence.
for it. Go for it.
If a parent must educate schools every August on how to teach and support their children in a way that is appropriate, research supported, humane, and dignified, as well as responsive and responsible, then that alone demonstrates how profoundly the system is failing our children. Not only students with disabilities, but all students who require not more, but simply different. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know our next speaker will be
Next, number 4, Ilan.
in the room.
In the room,
Yes.
yes, sorry.
Thank you for listening to me. So I'm here as a parent, but I'm also here as a psychiatrist that sees kids and adults who have been students within the TDSB who have developmental disabilities. I'm one of the few psychiatrists in the city of Toronto who sees kids and adults with level 2 and 3 autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disabilities. So I'm just here to make a few comments, what I hope will help the TDSB. My son is going to be speaking next, and he'll talk about his own experiences. But one is that I do think improvements could be made to special education people with developmental disabilities in a number of ways. One is that in my clinical experience, I find parents don't really understand their children's disabilities very well. Doctors are not going to be in the best position to provide that education. The school is. Number 2, kids with special needs often need smaller learning environments to thrive. Many of our high schools are 1,500 students, 2,000 students. To expect a child with a developmental disability to go to a small classroom within a school of 1,500 to 2,000 people and feel like they belong and be nurtured and be allowed to thrive, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. Third is that we should always be thinking about individual strengths and what the future is going to hold for this individual. Everyone deserves meaningful work and meaningful activities within their life. There needs to be a plan for everyone after they turn 21 so that they continue to have meaningful engagement with their community. I think the schools play a big, big role in doing that. So just in summary, education, ensuring there's still small schools available for kids with developmental disabilities. And third is really thinking about things like vocational placement and in a very proactive way so that no child with a developmental disability is left behind and doesn't have something meaningful to do when they finish school at age 21. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ilan. 5, Jet. In the room.
Hi, my name is Jet. I'm a grade 12 student in the TDSB. I was in the MID program from middle school and also the start of grade 9. It was very important that I go to a small school that specialized in working with kids with special needs because I was very sensitive and scared of loud noises and busy places, and I don't think I could have learned as well or made friends if I went to a large, busy high school. I understand that the high school I started at is no longer accepting grade 9 students and is at risk of shrinking or shutting down. That would be horrible. I think that the TDSB says not enough people are interested in this school. I cannot believe that. The TDSB doesn't encourage people to go to that school. My parents had to find it for me, even though it was the closest high school to where I live and met my needs at the time. I made lots of friends there, and I was able to switch from the MID program to the credit program. I was also supportive in being a leader in the school. I did announcements and helped run my school talent show. I actually had to move schools in grade 11 because my old school did not offer enough classes for me to graduate. Luckily, there was a small high school I could attend and will help me this year and go to college next year. I worry if my old school shrinks, my friends there won't have enough different courses for them to attend to graduate. My old school supported lots of students with developmental disabilities. I think it would be very scary for them to have to go to a big high school. They also wouldn't get the same opportunities to develop their confidence, be a school leader, make friends, and be supported to achieve their academic potential in a big high school. If I went to an MID program in a big high school, I doubt that I would be graduating this year. Have as many friends as I have and being going to college this next year. I would probably have been too scared to go to school to do as well as I have. Please support kids with my developmental disabilities by continuing to have smaller specialized high schools. I know many of my friends from my old school are not comfortable speaking out like this, so I am doing this for them as well as other kids like me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All of our speakers have been excellent. That gentleman has been excellent. Thank you very much. And on to our next speaker.
Thank you, Jet. Number 6, Andrea.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Andrea, and my 16-year-old son has special needs. And like many families, we've spent years trying to find an environment where he can truly learn, not just academically, but in a way that prepares him for life. Because for my son, the barriers are not small. Environments, like my friend just said, that are loud, unpredictable, constantly changing, are not just uncomfortable for him. They are overwhelming to the point of being almost debilitating. The noise, the movement, the lack of routine, it becomes too much. And when that happens, he shuts down. He can't focus, he can't engage, and over time, he will withdraw completely. We've seen it happen. So when I talk about the importance of the right school environment, I am not speaking in theory, I'm speaking from experience. What has made the difference for my son is being in a smaller, highly structured setting with specially trained teachers and staff who truly understand how he learns. They meet him where he is. They recognize when he's becoming overwhelmed, sometimes before he even realizes it himself. They know how to adapt, how to support, and how to keep him engaged. And because of that, he is not just coping, he is progressing. But just as important as the environment is what he is learning there. He's gaining real practical life skills. He's learning how to navigate public transit safely and independently. He's building culinary skills, preparing food, understanding routines in a kitchen, working as a part of a team, developing his social skills. He has access to co-op opportunities that expose him to real workplaces and expectations. These are not extras. For students like my son, these are the skills that determine whether he will be able to live with some level of independence as an adult. And for the first time, we can see a path where he could complete high school, maybe even earn a diploma, possibly transition to a college program or a supported workplace through co-op. That future feels within reach right now, but it is entirely dependent on him remaining in an environment that works for him. If he is not required to move into a large mainstream high school environment where those supports, that structure, that specialized understanding do not exist in the same way, I'm deeply concerned that he will get lost, not just academically, but completely. And if that happens, there is a real chance he will not finish high school. And if he does not finish high school, he will not gain the life skills he needs to succeed as an adult. At that point, we are no longer talking about education. We're talking about long-term dependency on our family and eventually on public systems. And from a fiscal perspective, that simply does not make sense. The cost of supporting someone who has not gained the skills for independence through social assistance, healthcare, and other services far exceeds the cost of keeping them engaged in the right educational environment now. I only have a few more words. This is not a saving, it is a delay and an escalation of cost. So I ask you to consider this carefully. Right now, my son is on a path towards independence, towards dignity, towards contributing in his own way. And that path is fragile. And it depends entirely on access to the kind of specialized environment he is in today. If that environment is taken away, the likelihood of him reaching that future drops dramatically. I would respectfully ask that you pause any decisions that would disrupt programs like this and take the time to fully understand not just the numbers, but the human outcomes. Because for students like my son, this is not about preference. It is about whether they're given the tools to build a life or whether that opportunity quietly disappears.
Thank you, Andrea. Number 7, Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us all to be here. It's good to see everybody. So my name is Michelle, and I have been a parent in the TDSB for almost 17 years. You know me well. I have been a member of this committee for 7 years. Before that, I was a member of PEAC, and I have been a trustee with this board. And I will say, after 17 years under ministry supervision, this is the first time that I believe the TDSB has outwardly stopped caring about student outcomes and student disabilities. Our child has amazing teachers. I want to say how much she loves them, but she doesn't like school. It's boring. I've seen our local school grow from 500 students to over 1,000 students. And in that time, I've also seen the number of support staff cut in half. This is not because the needs have gone away. This is because there is no funding. That is squarely on the ministry's shoulders, but that does not also, it also reflects a lack of priorities in keeping this here. The ministry is wrong on this fact. The depth of the severity of unmet needs this year for students with disabilities, mental health, and socioeconomic needs have resulted in repeated and serious safety issues at the school. Sadly, families have only been able to get attention for the lack of resources by repeatedly involving the media and the broader community and advocacy this year. This year, for the first time, the TDSB has, through their actions, directly harmed my child and their learning. The TDSB decided to fire or suspend 10 teachers, a principal and a vice principal from our child's school, including my child's amazing teachers, over a poorly managed change in the teaching model. Yes, it was that petty. Those suspensions cost my child and 300 other students weeks of lost learning and disruption for most of the year. This decision has negatively impacted the school climate and therefore worsened safety. It has made parents afraid. For my child, this has also resulted in significantly increased anxiety and now school refusal. We are paying out of pocket for external counseling now because, despite the efforts of the new principal, the TDSB cannot provide a time when my child might be able to access social work and counseling that they need. These are not the actions of the school board that I grew to love. These are the actions of a ministry that has failed to put students first. Indeed, nobody at the TDSB so far has bothered to own up to the negative impacts of these decisions on my school and my community. And I know from my years that this is not unique to my child's school. I further need to say that this year, my child, my partner, and myself have faced a complete lack of response until recently from the TDSB. My emails as a parent went unanswered. My emails to the superintendent went unanswered, from the supervisor went unanswered. Our emails to the students and parent support office went unanswered. And we were told recently that there's a 100% response rate for families, which is completely untrue. So my recommendations: the TDSB must return to prioritizing equitable outcomes for students and equitable access to programs and resources. Poverty and diverse identities are interlinked with disability. By eliminating equitable access to programs, eliminating funding for model schools or learning opportunities approaches, the TDSB is disproportionately targeting students and families with disabilities. The TDSB must Stop allowing resource staff to be pulled away from students with needs in order to cover for supply teachers. This disproportionately impacts students with disabilities. It has been increasing every year. My child has had almost no resource minutes this year. The TDSB needs to stop citing minimal ministry compliance and provide the necessary support and staffing that reflects student needs. I know too many families who are directed into ISP classes because they are told by their school, we won't be able to support your child. True inclusion requires the appropriate staffing, and it really doesn't matter if the ministry doesn't want to recognize this. It is the duty of the education system. The ministry is decades out of date with respect to the needs or the real-time needs of students with disabilities. Human rights for students are not being served by complying with outdated standards. The TDSB must resume the collection and publication of data regarding student needs so that both families and educators can properly support students. The TDSB must provide transparent communication to families. That transparency has all but ended under supervision, and the Parent Support Office is at best a joke and at worst gaslighting families. The TDSB must resume the special education review in its full format because data collection is critical. The TDSB is obligated to improve student outcomes, and that is not accomplished by sticking with the status quo or blind compliance with inadequate ministry funding. The TDSB has been a leader in education best practices since amalgamation, and that leadership should not be undone by supervision or a minister who does not understand or care about what is best for students.
In the room, Tanya. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Tanya, and I will speak on the needs of a gifted child. I knew nothing about giftedness when my 3 kids were born. It wasn't mentioned by my eldest son's teachers in elementary school. So when he became increasingly withdrawn and developed tics in grade 2, my husband and I were concerned. Our pediatrician said these were caused by anxiety, and the symptoms disappeared the day after we pulled him out to homeschool. We homeschooled child A until high school. When he was 13, he was tested for giftedness at the suggestion of a friend who was a teacher. He was placed in a congregated gifted high school program. Again, there wasn't anything presented by the school or his teachers about what giftedness meant. He was fortunate to be a curious academic child. The breadth of sports, clubs, electives, like-minded peers, and skillful teachers helped him thrive. Child B wasn't so lucky. He is twice exceptional. Being gifted with ADHD meant he could understand many things quickly, but couldn't execute tasks as expected. Most were too simple or too slow, so he would misbehave, disengage, seek attention. He sensed teachers didn't like him, and he couldn't see a purpose for schoolwork, so he turned to substances to calm his body, quiet his thoughts, and numb the feelings of worthlessness that grew over time in school. Since grade 9, child B has been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, borderline personality disorder, and hospitalized multiple times for suicide attempts and self-harm. At 18, he dropped out of high school and took a siding job in St. Catharines. He flourished at the work, fast-paced, creative problem-solving, concrete outcomes, high expectations. But the demands of working full-time and living on his own was too much. His mental health collapsed, and he moved home. This week, he finishes his last 2 credits at an adult high school. Yet the judgment and shame from past years remain embedded in his self-image, and he will not pursue further schooling. For him, the congregated gifted program was grossly inadequate to meet his needs to develop healthily. For child C, the same was true. Gifted and autistic, he lasted 6 months in grade 9 before he moved to a day program at Sick Kids, then a residential therapeutic program for 18 months. Thankfully, that program addressed the depression and trauma that burdened him, taught him the self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-assertion skills that he needed, and helped him understand how his unique wiring impacted his experience of the world and his peers. The label gifted is misleading. My kids are not privileged, unbreakable, or inevitable successes. Their gift affects their entire being. They absorb extraordinary amounts of information unintentionally, and it can be overwhelming to process. For my kids, this made school confusing, unmanageable, and damaging. The narrow scope of current high school gifted programs contributes to this problem, with the singular intention of delivering academic work at increased depth and breadth, and without requiring training for teachers in the unique traits of a gifted mind. The curriculum is often just more work and harder, in my son's words. And when the program ignores the social and emotional aspects of giftedness in teens, when self-identity is critically developing, vulnerable and peer influenced, the consequences can be devastating. I know.
Number 9 in the room.
Oh, number 10.
Oh, number 10 in the room, Catherine.
Hi. So I'm number 10 and this is number 11. Yeah. So if it's okay, I'm just going to speak.
It's going to take my turn.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good evening. My name is Catherine. I'm the proud mother of a high support needs student who's thriving at Eastdale Collegiate. My son's progress is not accidental. It's a direct result of Eastdale's smaller learning environment, its lower student to teacher ratio, and the dedicated staff and administration who've created a culture of genuine inclusion and belonging. Eastdale serves students whose neurodiversities and invisible disabilities require a modified learning environment in order to meaningfully access education. If my child could cope and succeed in his local high school of more than 1,500 students, he would already be there. But students like my son cannot simply leave their disabilities at the school door. Expecting them to do so and moving towards closing Eastdale without equivalent supports already in place creates barriers rather than removing them. That is not inclusion. Inclusion only works when it's properly supported. Right now, especially in light of significant teacher layoffs and system pressures, families do not see how receiving schools will be able to provide the level of individualized support students with MID or other exceptionalities require. When specialized environments are removed before equivalent accommodations exist, students do not become more included, they become more vulnerable. Sorry, I'm going to try not to cry.
Take your time. Totally take your time.
Sorry.
If you want a few minutes, we can have somebody else speak and then you can pick up when you feel more comfortable. However you want to proceed, we will accommodate you.
Thank you.
Tell me what you prefer and
I can do
whatever
it.
is, we'll do.
At Eastdale, my son receives a meaningful education. He participates fully in school life. Sorry. I can do it. I can do it. He feels safe, he belongs. If he is forced into mainstream environment without adequate supports, he will not simply change schools, he will lose meaningful access to education. Some students require smaller specialized learning environments to achieve educational equality. Schools like Eastdale are not barriers to inclusion. They are accommodations that make inclusion possible. True commitment to equity recognizes that fairness does not mean sameness. The Ontario Human Rights Code is clear. Students with disabilities have the right to meaningful access to education and appropriate accommodation. Discrimination includes policies that appear neutral but create adverse effects for protected groups. Freezing grade 9 admissions and moving toward closure disproportionately impacts students with disabilities, a protected group under the code. The board's own human rights policy recognizes the duty to accommodate as a legal obligation that must be met up to the point of undue hardship, a very high threshold. With that in mind, I'm formally stating that Eastdale's smaller learning environment and lower student to staff ratio are the accommodations my son and many other students require to learn successfully. I am submitting this request in writing because families must be meaningfully included in decisions made about our children. The United Nations recognizes disability is shaped by environmental barriers. When barriers increase, disability increases. By closing Eastdale without equivalent supports already in place, the TDSB risks becoming the institution creating those barriers. As a proud member of an advocate of the disability community, I believe this decision risks institutional ableism, not through intent, but through impact. And impact matters. Without appropriate support, students with disabilities face increased risks of bullying, anxiety, mental health challenges, disengagement from school, and lower graduation outcomes. Statistics Canada shows that individuals with disabilities are disproportionately living below the poverty line, often connected to reduced educational attainment. Providing appropriate educational environments is therefore not optional. It is essential to equity, dignity, and long-term success. We must also consider what happens when students with individual disabilities become overwhelmed and unsupported in larger schools. Too often, they are suspended, they are excluded for safety reasons. They're labeled as behavioral problems rather than students needing accommodations. Data from both the TDSB and Ontario Human Rights Commission already shows that students in specialized education, particularly students who are racialized, are disproportionately impacted by suspensions and expulsions. And we know formal data does not capture everything. Informal exclusions, shortened school days, or students being sent home are real, and students with disabilities are disproportionately affected. When a small, well-supported environment disappears, this risk is not theoretical. Students lose structure, they lose belonging, and ultimately risk being pushed out of the learning altogether. Equity must be more than principle written in policy. Equity requires maintaining learning environments that already work for vulnerable students. We should be removing barriers for students with disabilities, not creating new ones. I respectfully ask the board to pause this decision, reverse the stoppage of grade 9 enrollment at Eastdale, and work collaboratively with families, educators, and disability advocates to protect the learning environment that is already succeeding. Eastdale is not failing students. Eastdale is succeeding because it meets students where they are and allows them to learn with dignity. Please do not sell the land for condos. Please protect this proven pathway to success for some of the most vulnerable students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All of us on SEAC understand how hard this is to do, and we're parents too, and we honor your dedication in being willing and able to share it with us.
Thank you. In the room, Amber.
Hi, my name's Amber. I'm going to use my 3 minutes to talk about the behavior intensive support program that was recently essentially canceled. So my child, when he was in grade 3, he started to really notice a vast difference between how he experienced the classroom environment and his peers did. Things were moving at a pace that he wasn't able to follow. It was making him increasingly angry, leading to behavioral issues, leading to harsher, responses from teachers and administrators, and eventually got to a point where, school was basically an intolerable place, panic attacks and whatnot. He was recommended to the Caring and Safe School, which is a temporary program that is offered. He went there, and there was a small class with a great teacher and a CYW, and immediately they saw no issues with him. They said he was a kind, helpful, considerate student. He asked for help when he needed it. He was engaged. He had a great time there. He was a great student. I think the fact that there were skilled, highly qualified staff and a small classroom is really, what made that happen. However, that's a short-term solution. So going into grade 6, we tried to reintegrate him into a regular school program, and that immediately went very, very badly. Fight or flight kicked in very quickly. And in his case, a bit of fight and a bit of flight all at the same time. And so we pulled him out of school for a while we went through the IPRC process to get him into the behavior ISP program in partway through grade 6. So he started in that program, really being able only to tolerate school for about an hour a day, It was very labor intensive for the staff, for the teacher in the room, the CYW in the room, the principal, the vice principal, but they were incredibly compassionate and dedicated and skilled at what they did. And by the time he was in grade 8, he loved school. He was almost fully integrated in school. He went on the, overnight school trip to Ottawa, was really loved school. And I have to say that program definitely saved his education. He would not have been able to continue in the education system in any capacity. We tried many different things. Had it not been for those individuals and that small classroom size to get him to where he needed to be. When he was in grade 8 and just about to age out of the program, we were told that program was essentially being canceled. And when I challenged, not for my son's benefit because he was going to be aging out, why it was being canceled, I was given a few reasons. One was that it had been historically applied in a very racist, systematic manner. So I pushed back a bit on that and said, well, if you have the data to show that it was applied in a racist manner, did you use that data to then go back to the source and find the administrators who were administering this program in a racist fashion? And I was told, no, the TDSB looks forwards, not backwards. The other reason that they gave was that the name of the program caused parents to not really want to participate in it. And I can understand that. And I asked, well, did you consider changing the name? And no, I was told, no, that's not really possible. So instead, the program was canceled. So this program that was possibly life-saving, definitely education-saving for my son, has been canceled. And again, the small class sizes, the skilled professionals in the room are really what I think all our kids need to varying degrees.
Thank you very much.
Next in the room, Ying. Is Ying here? Oh.
Hello. Thank you, everybody. And instead of starting from talking about my daughter's situation, who is now in grade 11, and she went through a lot of hardships, and I have heard quite some common issues and from the previous speakers' parents. And I believe that many of the senior TDSB staff here, and you are also parents, but you, in the meanwhile, you are TDSB senior officials. And I would like to speak from both sides and to think, and to make it more feasible. And so basically my recommendations, I would start from my recommendations, is mainly that I think that I would recommend to introduce, or I would say extend, and the training for teachers and the school management staff. And so for them to have the mindset and therefore their behaviors, and to be a true educator. And because I'm thinking by saying true educator, I mean, as what I think, it's not only to teach, it's also to be supportive of students and to develop students' full potential, either it's disability or gifted and treated as abnormal. And, in terms of regarding as normal, that could be a long discussion about what is abnormal. Okay. And also to allow individual differences for students. Okay. And also to treat them equally instead of just acting as an authority. Like as a teacher, okay, I'm the one who mark you. Or as a school management staff, and I'm the one who make the call, and like this. And students, then they treat students equally. Yeah, I mean, even kids, okay. And so for me, and I would like to say, I can expand it a little bit more after that, and within to be as soon as possible. And I think once it's established, if we can have a common goal and of a definition of what's a true educator, and to make it more specific, and then we should have ways of monitoring and correcting teachers and school management staff in time and effectively, if something seriously wrong, identified and proved. And I think preventing and correcting in time is so important, rather than as compared to letting it happen, and just, to the disaster conditions that finally happened to the students. And TDSB has limited fundings and has limited human resources. And the teachers, and they are all individuals and they have different styles, and definitely they are all persons. And I would say, as a true educator, and if we can achieve that, if not 100%, even like 80% something, and now I would like to say it's like 60%, and then is all the teachers, the school management staff, and everybody, the TDSB management staff, and they will feel it's easy, it's not that hard, and with the limited funding and human resources, and it will be interesting, and you can feel the sense of achievement by doing this. And I would like to expand a little bit more about my recommendations.
I actually asked if I could trouble you to just sort of start towards wrapping up. Can
I? You would like to wrap it up?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
I already said it, and I mean, to introduce and extend the trainings. Do I need to repeat that?
No, not
But
at all.
can I make it a little bit more specific, a little bit more, and very quickly?
If you got one more
and
point.
parents and students usually, look up to that. I can tell about my daughter how she has been experienced all these years, and she has met many good teachers and good school management staff that they make remarkable achievements, and we're so thankful for, and make great. But it's ruined by just a few, okay, and still happening to her, and I'm keeping working with them very cooperatively, and to think from their point of view. But I met the same issue as the previous parents, and even that grade 12 students tell on behalf of for other grade 12 students. I mean, the children's students, they should be the live role models. And for these teachers and school management staff, don't let the students down. Again, don't let them lose trust in you. And as a person in school, I think the words and actions, that they should deserve the students' respect. And yes, you need to be knowledgeable and in your fields, and to be capable and in teaching and managing or whatever. And very importantly, to be responsible and caring. I mean, genuinely responsible and caring.
Okay, and
yes, then that's it.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, you cut off me, and anyway, I would like to. I can provide more information to Ms. Green, and thank you. And in written.
If you want to email it to us, that would be.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Next in the room, Christina.
Christina. As you're coming up, I just want to explain to everybody, I hate being the one who has to say, please wrap up, because I'm with you and I'd be wanting more time. So I fully sympathize with your situation of wanting more time to explain what you got than we're able to manage. But thank you for putting up with me. Okay, Christine.
Hi. So I'm a parent of twin girls who are diagnosed with autism and a language delay under the DSM-5. And personally, I'm really tired of hearing what they can't do instead of what they can accomplish. They waited from senior kindergarten to grade 2 for early intervention. They finally got that, and now I learned at a recent meeting that will mostly phase out in grade 4. So I would like to ask that services be retroactive. Once they are requested and applied for, that continues on for a certain number of years to make sure that all students get the same amount of services. And I also think it would be very beneficial to implement group therapy, because it really seems like there just are not enough resources to go around for each student to get individual therapy. And studies show that it's very very beneficial to have group therapy. It's actually just as beneficial as individual therapy. Personally, I am a firm believer that disabled students can do anything with the right support system and extra help and community. A lot of kids, though, are getting stuck between two systems. They're getting stuck between special education and mainstream education. And it seems like they don't really fit in either system. And then having to leave their school if they're in mainstream education, they lose that community. And that can be very difficult for those students and very disruptive. And it's just so hard for them already. I am trying to raise 2 girls into strong Indigenous women, and I don't want them to go on a pipeline to welfare and disability. Personally, I've lived on those, and it's extremely difficult. And I want so much better than that for my daughters. And I just feel like these kids are honestly, in a way, being failed on just a mass systemic scale. I really would like to see meeting parents halfway more, and more collaboration with parents. There are meetings at the school they attend, but it seems like they listen, but nothing really gets implemented. It feels more like lip service than actual results. And just, I am a disabled single mother. And if I can do it, then I just don't understand how a whole education system can't. And I feel like that's a fair criticism. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Next is in the room, Janine.
Hello, good evening. My name's Janine, and I am the daughter of a 19-year-old daughter who has trisomy 21 and autism and dyslexia. She's a beautiful person, being very patient in the back of this room. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's wonderful that we're still in a democratic place, or mostly democratic place, because of course, all of us who are here speaking are speaking from a point of privilege because we've had the time, the energy to get here and be together. I wanted to thank the parents and students who have spoken tonight because I appreciate their vulnerability, sharing their pain, their struggles, things like, the old IPRC. I mean, I just toss them in the garbage now because they're that meaningless. I'm grateful my daughter's 19 because that means she's almost done and ready to launch into the world. I am grateful that she grew up when TDSB and the school systems were more attentive to people who are different. I wanted to share a quote from a woman. Her name is Dr. Jean Clinton. She's the author of Think, Feel, Act, which was published in 2013. She says, relations are nutrients for the brain. I'll say it again. Relations are nutrients for the brain. Learning is about making relationships, and this is the language that allows all of us to absorb information and process information at a deeper level. And I think that one issue that hasn't come up that's systemic is that my daughter was blessed that I found for her a K-8 school. And I would like SEAC, the Board of Education, and all the people who are in the higher levels of authority to consider increasing the number of K-8 schools and continuing in the model of community so that a parent wouldn't have to drive more than 20 minutes to a K-8 school. And I think that would increase the capacity to engage parents and neighbors and people that don't have children who may be able to contribute to our educational community in very meaningful ways. I just found it sort of shocking that there's so few K-8 schools in the TDSB. I also wanted to speak to a systemic problem of teacher education. I heard on the radio that the ministry is going to fast track teachers in a 12-month program. I would like them to mandatory special needs education for teachers, because that's what we really need. I could say many more things, but thank you for the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Next in the room, we have Maya.
Maya?
I hope I pronounced that correctly. Omaha? Maya. Oh, I was right the first time. Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I've been in the board for over 20 years with 2 students, and I'm coming here as a parent, but I'm also a professional as a clinical forensic social worker and working in the justice system, supporting individuals with complex behavioral and developmental needs. But I'm here to speak about the impact that the potential closure of the specialized high schools in the TDSB will have on students like my younger daughter. My older daughter, I'm not going to speak about because she left high school. She also has special needs, and she didn't finish high school. But I'm going to digress and talk about my daughter, who is behaviorally complex with a multitude of diagnoses. When she's overwhelmed, she has historically eloped, and her behaviors escalate in environments where she does not feel safe, understood, valued, or supported. In a large mainstream high school, managing elopement requires significant staff resources, and administration would be responsible for locating her, ensuring her safety, and responding to escalation, often pulling multiple staff away from other students. But in her current specialized setting, because she feels safe and supported, her elopement has become virtually non-existent. For the first time, this is not just behavioral progress, it is a more effective use of staff resources. This model prevents crisis instead of constantly reacting to it, because we have the support staff in one location as opposed to providing staff one-to-one in multiple locations. And for the first time, my daughter is not just being managed, which she has been for many years, but she's thriving. She feels a sense of belonging. She's building confidence, gaining independence, earning credits, and developing real-life skills like cooking and cosmetology, skills that will allow her to participate in society with dignity and purpose. In these schools, if these schools are closed, students like my daughter will face significant barriers: sensory and environmental overwhelm, increased behavioral escalation and school avoidance, and loss of meaningful skill-based programming. And I don't have to tell you that with the increased behavioral escalation will come suspension, possible expulsion, and she's going to be an adult shortly, so that could lead to justice involvement. She's a young woman, so we need to also talk about critical safety concerns. In a large, chaotic, mixed gender environment where students can easily go unnoticed, she is significantly more vulnerable to exploitation, to harm, to assault. In her current school, she is known, she is seen, staff know where she is at all times, and that level of oversight is not just supportive, it is protective. Can I go a little bit longer?
Please do.
This is not just best practice, it is a human rights issue. Students with disabilities have the right to equitable access to education, to safety, and to dignity. They have the right to appropriate accommodations that allow them to learn and participate meaningfully. Closing these high schools does not uphold those rights, it undermines them. Closing these schools will not create inclusion, it will create displacement, regression, and risk. If the goal is to improve outcomes for students, then the recommendation should be not to be to remove specialized environments that are working, but to strengthen and expand them. So my recommendations are to maintain and protect the specialized school placements for the students with complex behavioral and developmental needs, expand access to these programs to meet growing demand instead of manufacturing scarcity, as many families are still unable to access these appropriate placements, openly communicate with parents, students, and other community stakeholders, and ensure transparency and accountability for both the ministry and the board, and track long-term outcomes, academic, social, safety, and system involvement to guide evidence-based decision-making. Students like my daughter have a legal and human right to a meaningful education, not a place where they are warehoused, not a system where supports are removed and risk is increased. Our children are not political pawns. They are not budget lines. They are entitled to safety, to dignity, and to a future. I urge you to protect what is working and to build on it and to consider not just what is being removed, but what will be lost, because I'm in the justice environment and I see what happens in the trajectory of students with behavioral needs, and they end up in the justice system. And I have that fear for my daughter. Thank you for your time.
Next is Jennifer in the room. Is Jennifer in the room?
Jennifer 32.
Yeah, I understand, but it would be good to have them on. Well, you could. Well, thank you. But let's continue.
So if Jennifer's not there, I have admitted the first online person.
Oh no, Jennifer is here.
Yes? Okay,
Here.
no problem.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Shall we
gonna
start?
see, I've been advised that because we can't tell the people online what's going on here, they're left in limbo, and some people are. I've been letting you go over. I'm gonna ask if people can struggle, if they can, to stick to their 3 minutes, if at all possible.
Okay.
And I apologize.
Okay. So I'll begin. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak today. I was here in December to talk about my family's incredible experience with Hayden Park Secondary School, and I'm here again because the school's future is still threatened. In February 2026, we heard that the school will be open next year, but without grades 9 or 10. And apart from that, there has been little transparency and our email inquiries go unanswered. It has been my experience that the TDSB does all it can to prevent acknowledging when students need extra help. My daughter is in grade 12. It took until grade 12 to have the TDSB recognize her as eligible for special education supports. It shouldn't take until near the end of a student's school career for the TDSB to recognize that a student needs something different. Parents shouldn't have to battle and escalate in order to get their kids an education. If the TDSB and the government were truly wanting to put students' achievements first, they would listen to parents and take them seriously when they raise concerns about their children's learning. Like my daughter, there are kids falling through the cracks who are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, and as such are not getting the support they need. Furthermore, there are students who have special education needs who don't fit in the exceptionality boxes. These students are generally stuck in mainstream schools that don't work for them. Access to schools like Hayden Park is critical for these students and for the students who are still trying to complete foundational credits later in high school. For those who don't know, Hayden Park has been around for about 100 years educating girls, non-binary and trans students with special needs. And it has a MID program and an academic program. The two programs are well integrated, making it a great example of inclusion done right. Currently, my grade 12 daughter is taking her grade 9 physical education credit along with those in the MID program. It doesn't really make sense that TDSB didn't let grade 9s in this year because there are other kids in higher grades who are still working on achieving their grade 9 credits. The TDSB appears to be moving towards closing schools like Hayden Park that are successfully serving kids with special education needs. They cite insufficient enrollment, yet they are dissuading students from attending by disallowing open houses, directing students elsewhere, and preventing students from qualifying for these programs. At the same time, the TDSB is working towards right-sizing high schools to put at least 1,000 kids in them. This doesn't work for all students. I went to a large high school. My younger daughter will go to one, but my older daughter just can't. You wouldn't get her through the door with her sensory issues. She cannot function in crowds. But these are the high schools where you'll find the kids that once bullied her, and she wasn't able to learn in a regular high school, an ISP or alternative school. We've tried them all. But now she's where she's succeeding, finally in grade 12 at Hayden Park. Hayden Park has continued to change lives for the better. And with just 130 students, Hayden Park is a right-sized school. If
you could just make your last point, that would be great.
I was just going to say that if she had the support she needed earlier, I'm sure it would have improved her learning and her mental health. Had we discovered Hayden Park sooner, she might have been graduating this year. Instead, she's got another 3 years to go. So I would like us to sort of value student achievement and well-being and protect and invest in the schools that support special education needs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you can't get through what you have written out, feel free to email it to Leanne and she will share it with us and we will read it. It's not as good, but it's better than us not getting the chance to see it at all. Next is.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now I have number 38, Rahel.
It's Kate. I think we're virtual now. Oh, no, sorry, you're right.
You're after Kate?
No. It's Rahel. You're right.
Okay.
Rahel.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For a parent of a child with special needs, waiting is uncertainty, is not neutral time. Every unanswered question.
Oh, there's one more person in the room, and then they'll start online.
Sorry, whoever's online, you're not muted.
Every unanswered question, every unclear timeline, it's a time a child may be left without support they need to thrive. I am a parent of a young autistic child in TDSB whose educational future is being shaped through IPRC process. As a new parent, I'm still learning how to navigate the school system, which makes clear that accurate communication is not just helpful, but it's essential. For children like mine, these decisions are not administrative steps on paper. They shape where a child learns, what supports they receive, and whether they are placed in an environment where they can truly succeed. That's why clarity in the IPRC process matters so deeply. After our school support team meeting, I began asking for clear information about when my child's IPRC would take place. I followed up several times before receiving an answer. Eventually, I was told that the standard was for an IPRC to happen within 3 months and that the 15-day requirement applied only to acknowledgement of request. But when I reviewed the board's own special education plan, it said something different. Within 15 days of a written parent request, families must receive not only the guide to special education, but also written notice indicating approximately when IPRC would meet. That difference may sound procedural, but for families like mine, it changed everything. Because the policy was interpreted inconsistently, decisions affecting my child's future became unnecessarily uncertain. As a parent, that was the moment trust in the process began to break. What made that delay so difficult was not only waiting itself, but it was what the waiting meant. While timelines remained unclear, I could not prepare for my child's next educational step with confidence. I could not know whether the right placement and support would be ready in time, and my child remained in limbo, while critical decisions affecting his learning environment were still unresolved. For children with special education needs, delays are not abstract administrative gaps. These affect real developmental time, real transitions, and real opportunities to receive support when it matters most. When the written policy says one thing and the families are told another, parents are left asking, what are the actual rules? What rights can we rely on? And how many other families accept incorrect information simply because they do not know that they should question it? My child's IPRC was eventually scheduled, but the weeks of uncertainty and repeated follow-ups could have been avoided if accurate, policy-aligned communication had been provided from the beginning.
I'm really sorry to be interrupting at this point, but if you could make your last point and then provide
Okay.
it to us in writing, that we'll read the rest of it.
Okay.
Is
So
that
this is
okay?
not, okay, so this is not my family's only experience. It reveals a larger system issue. Inconsistent interpretation of IPRC policy creates unequal access to information across schools. Procedural protections lose their value when their interpretation depends on individual administrators rather than consistent board-wide compliance. When timelines are unclear, families lose precious preparation time and students may face delayed placement decisions. For children who need support, every delayed week is a week they cannot get back. To protect families from avoidable confusion, I respectfully ask TDSB to recommend mandatory annual compliance training for principals on IPRC procedural requirements and timeline obligations. A standardized written IPRC timeline notices immediately after every parent request using board-approved language. A mandatory board-wide IPRC compliance checklist for every case, an automatic central review when no IPRC meeting date is scheduled within a defined time frame or when conflicting procedural guidance is given.
Okay,
A child's educational future.
Thank you very much. And if we could just be sure that you send it in to Leanne, we'll read the rest of it.
All right, thanks.
Okay, I'm really sorry. For the benefit of everybody and Nora, who's air traffic controlling everything with Jordan, I'm going to defer both the video and the written statements to our May meeting. So we're sure that we just allocate all our time to our speakers who are here or online. All right.
Moving online, Kate, number 17.
Welcome, Kate.
Hello, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, I will try to keep this brief. So I'm here as a parent of 2 children in the TDSB. My oldest child has, he's in grade 3 now. He has a diagnosis of ADHD and autism level 1. But the biggest barrier that we've faced in the TDSB is the climate of exclusion for kids with special needs. So that's from other parents, from staff, all the way up to school administrators. So my son received an ADHD diagnosis in kindergarten, but he didn't get his autism diagnosis until the second half of grade 1. So for the first 2.5 years of his schooling, before that diagnosis, he really needed special education supports, but he didn't have a label that would flag him as a kid who does. So for that whole 2.5 years, he was treated like a bad kid with behavior problems, not a kid with a neurodevelopmental condition that needs accommodations under the Human Rights Code. So everything was about how his bad behavior and what we must be doing wrong as parents. So we knew that he was neurodivergent. He's a really bright, funny, kind kid, but he really struggled with emotional regulation and social skills. But communication from school always focused on what he was doing wrong and what we needed to do about it. Like we would get calls from the principal back in JK about how other parents were complaining about our child, so we needed to talk to him and figure it out, how to make it stop. And we were just advocating constantly for support. It was absolutely exhausting. I had to advocate for an SST. We had to advocate for referrals to the model school's pediatric clinic for assessments. Then after we received the assessments, we had to advocate for those recommendations to be followed. It was just constant. We would be asking for supports and the principal would say that we just don't have the resources at school. So then I'd try to go to the superintendent or the trustee at that time. And on a few occasions when we would have a special needs assistant deployed to the school for a few weeks to help in the class, it would be like night and day, and my kid would be able to finally like regulate and participate in class. It was amazing. But again, it was this constant cycle of trying to advocate. So in JK, we were repeatedly told by the principal that the school did not have the resources. Sorry, is that 3 minutes up already?
Just about.
Just
No?
about.
Okay, I'll try to keep
You
it
could
short.
just do a wrap up. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to get
You
through it.
can email
Yeah.
your prepared text. We will read it.
I'll do
so
that.
we're sure
Yeah.
we'll see what you weren't able to cover.
Okay, so I'll just quickly say, just to that, instead of getting support that we needed, our child was excluded, was criminalized. We had the school call CAS on our family for his behavior. And when CAS met with us, they said that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, and they're closing the file, and that there was nothing that they could do to compel the school to follow the Human Rights Code and implement the basic recommendations from our doctors and other professionals. We've had families who made our time at school just torturous. We had families trying to get us to leave and get our kid out of school. We had a family call the police on our 7-year-old autistic child after the school refused to suspend him for a classroom incident. So every step of the way has just been really challenging. And then finally, when he got this autism diagnosis after 2.5 years, it was like everything made sense. He was not a bad kid. He's just a kid who needs support. And now we have that support in an ASD ISB classroom, and it's incredible. And I will include all of the whole thing that I really wanted to share with the committee in my email. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for speaking. There's a room of people applauding. All right, our next speaker.
Thank you.
Is
Next, number 18, Cayman.
In the room?
On virtual.
Oh,
My
on
apologies.
virtual. Okay, Cayman, and you got 3 minutes, and if you could please squeeze it in. If you can't get it all in, then please email us your comments, and we're going to read them.
Hi. Okay. So hi, my name is Cami. My youngest son is a wheelchair user, and he's just finishing up senior kindergarten. I'll try to speak very quickly. I want to talk about the senior kindergarten to grade 1 transition with respect to physical accessibility concerns. This is also my second kid, and so I know that typically developing children also have a hard time with this SK to grade 1 transition as well, and they do receive a lot of support. It's a very important transition. It's just that the type of support my younger son is going to need, it will have to consider him being a wheelchair user, and I have concerns with that basically. As background, my son's school is technically designated a fully accessible school by TDSB standards. However, there are still many physical barriers, and a lot of my recommendations will be for schools designated fully accessible. Because while I wish there were like all schools being designated fully accessible, but I think if we are designating these schools fully accessible, we should endeavor to make them as accessible as possible. But just generally that the inside of the school is hard to navigate. And I could give you a whole long list of specific physical barriers, but seeing as I, have already sent a list to our superintendent recently, and I only have a few minutes, I'll try to summarize. But
if you give us a couple of examples and send us your list, that would be fantastic.
Great, I will. All right. So the teachers and staff, though, they have done like a really wonderful, beautiful job of facilitating his inclusion, and it has taken a lot of effort on their part, and a lot of it has relied on there being like the structure of the kindergarten class, there being 2 adults, right? Because there are a lot of logistical elements. And so I do have a couple examples in my thing I'm reading, but there's a lot of inner doors that aren't automated, and the school does have an elevator, but that they can't fit the whole class, right? And so there does have to be a splitting up and a coming back together a lot of the times. And so just for logistical reasons, moving through the school could be very difficult. Things like that. And a lot of this it just relies on having two adults for logistical reasons. So my recommendation would be to, have two adults assigned for classrooms with a wheelchair user for logistical concerns. There's another area I'd like to specifically mention, which is the yard. Generally, the playground equipment in the yard is not accessible. And just above T12, my son is typically developing. So just imagine like strapping wheels to the butt of any typically developing 5-year-old, like they're gonna find things to do. And so I fully anticipate like the accessibility ramp will become my son's slide because we're not giving him playground equipment that he can use, right? Which is just unfortunate. And then it's a lot for then the yard teachers to be watching. And as I understand it from talking to my principal, the plan is they will have like a supervisor for they'll be watching a group of special needs kids that they'll be responsible for. But this is like a lot of responsibility on that person to be covering a lot of people. And I just think I think designated fully accessible schools should have more supervision on the yard and ideally would have physically accessible playground equipment considered in the site designation, or at least like endeavor to bring it up to accessibility.
All right, that's fantastic. And thank you very much. And please send that information. Thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us.
Okay, can I just mention one more thing about the yard?
If you can do it super fast.
Okay, all right. So snow management limitations make the school grounds like functionally inaccessible whenever there is significant snowfall. And I would just recommend that schools designated fully accessible be provided with additional snow clearing similar to the enhanced snow removal at congregated sites, especially if there is already a wheelchair user enrolled. Right now it's just a path they get and it's very slushy and it's not well maintained and it damages his wheelchair actually.
That's a really good point. All right. Thank you very much. And you're getting applause in the room. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Number 19, virtually, Tara Lee.
Tara Lee, you get 3 minutes and please try to stick to it. And if you're got a lot left, just plan to email your speech to us and we will all read it. Are you there?
I don't see her in the waiting room, but there still are some people who haven't identified themselves by their name. So I'm going to go to the next person, who is Taurine. So I'm just going to.
That's who I have as well, Taurine. Yeah.
Taurine, okay. You got her on board? Or him?
Yes.
Them?
Just coming.
All right. Are they there?
I don't see them yet.
Tell me when you see them.
Is it my turn?
Yep, it's your turn. It's David Lepovsky here. I'm the chair of SEAC. Sorry for the wait. Thanks for being patient. You got 3 minutes, and if you can't finish everything in 3 minutes, you can certainly email in your remarks, and we'd be delighted to read the rest of it. So go for it.
All right, thank you. I'm here as a parent who spent years navigating the systems within this board. While classrooms change, the story remains the same. My child has been met with prejudice, exclusion, and numerous barriers. I'm here to talk about the system that treats dignity and education of special needs students, especially those from racialized families, as optional. Year over year, month over month, my child's faced countless acts of microaggressions, racism, ableism. For a long time, there was no sense of safety when sending my child through these school doors. The difference wasn't in just how we showed up, but it was how we were seen. I've had to be hyper aware of my own presence, knowing that I can't dress like other dads at drop off in a baseball cap and sneakers without being judged or labeled. For my wife, she has to wear her wedding ring to every meeting. So when I can't be there, she has to show that, she's married. We know that if we just show justified anger of a parent whose child is being failed or mistreated, I become labeled the angry Black dad, or worse could happen. I'm basically a parent who's trying to fight for the basic right to education for my child, yet I have to fight with principals, superintendents, and elected officials for basic accommodations. We've endured the trauma of baseless accusations, calls to Children's Aid Society, This seems to be a tactic often used against Black families to silence advocacy and deflect from a school's inability to provide support. In our experience, the best staff aren't necessarily the ones who with the most titles, but they're the ones who proactively try to roll up their sleeves to remove the barriers. And those are the individuals are the exception, but it's not the rule. I've seen the depths of institutional ableism within the system. We've watched essential technology secured by one professional sit on the shelf for 4 months because no one would take it down. We have had our staff tell us that colleagues' assessments don't matter, that they can unilaterally change my child's IEP goals or technology's allocations on a whim. When we bring up these failures to the table, the people around the table change. We're told to forget the past because they weren't the ones who did it. But the harm is cumulative. The system is just another meeting, but to my child, it's a lifetime of being told they don't matter. Currently, my child's in a much better place. He's a valued member of our school and our neighborhood community. We're finally working with people who are showing up the way they should have from the beginning. But a child's right to an education shouldn't depend on luck or getting a proactive teacher or a good professional. Special education is not optional. Therefore, I believe the training to understand it cannot be optional. So I'm calling on you, the TDSB, and more importantly, the Minister of Education, to move beyond recommendations and optional professional development. What I think you need is mandatory training, so comprehensive ongoing training on special education supports, anti-ableism, anti-oppression, that must be mandated for all staff, from administration all the way down to the classroom. Especially here, continuity of care. We need a system where resources and technology follow the child immediately, not after months of parental advocacy or executive intervention. We need accountability. Staff must be held to the assessments and resources already allocated to a child. A single staff member should not have the power to disregard the professional work of their peers. Families like mine shouldn't have to fight this hard just to be treated fairly. We aren't asking for special treatment. We're asking for the equal treatment of that the law promises. Our children aren't optional. Their futures aren't optional. I believe it's time for the training of those people who hold those futures in their hands reflect that reality. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak on this.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you
that.
very much for your presentation.
Hey, you're welcome.
Next, virtually, I have number 21, Rena.
Could let me know when she's with us.
Yep.
Hi there.
Hi, I'm David Lepovsky. I'm the chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee. Welcome. Thanks for your patience. You get 3 minutes. I'll let you know when it's up. And if you could just wrap up at that point, and if you've got additional things you wanted to say, you could just send them in and we'll read your remarks. Ready to go?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
my name's Rena. I do also have my husband, Andrew, here as well. And so we wanted to speak a little bit about our daughter, who's currently in a diagnostic kindergarten class. And so we were asked to talk specifically to the barriers that we've encountered thus far in her education process. So we want to keep it brief, obviously. So the first is limited support, which I'm sure you've heard already about tonight. So it's clear that the goal of support is sort of the bare minimum of keeping kids vaguely safe and sometimes not even achieving that within the classroom. So Sia started in the DK class in September. There were 5 children in her class in total. The teacher to kid ratio was amazing. They were able to keep kids safe and also work on education, which is something we should all strive for in the school system. However, because of the increase in numbers of kids in the class, now there are 10 kids in the class. They're very high needs. They're very active. And now the goal is just keeping the kids safe and making sure nothing crazy happens. It's really setting the kids up for failure at school. I'm sure you have heard stories of kids that get injured at school. Sia explores things orally, so we're always worried that she's going to be, putting something not safe into her mouth. But one example is that, Sia was recommended for a DK placement because she needs help with ADLs. And one of those ADLs is toileting, but on weekends at home, she's dry, but they're not able to work on toileting at school simply because there are not enough staff to actually help with ADLs. So the goal of having her in that class isn't actually being achieved. Otherwise, she is a very bright young girl that loves to read and is super social. And now she's in a class with other kids that are nonverbal and aren't interacting with her. And so it hasn't really been able to meet her needs in that way. The second barrier that we identified was the lack of involvement of parents ourselves in the whole SEPRC and IPRC process, and the lack of involvement by, I guess, the lack of transparency that's offered to parents about these processes. So SEPRC was a very frustrating experience for us. We went back and forth communicating with the resource educator, with the principals for months. And then finally, we very persistently advocated in May, in June, prior to her starting kindergarten. And then finally, we heard back. We were told that our SEPRC was going to be the last week of August before starting school, which is just frankly unacceptable. How is anyone supposed to plan, supposed to prepare their child with, extra needs, supposed to feel confident that those needs will actually be met and their child will be safe at school if these meetings are happening literally days before school is starting? And so
I'm gonna let you know that unfortunately your 3 minutes are up. If you could just wrap up quickly, and then you could send on other comments that
yeah,
we could read.
absolutely.
And I apologize.
Oh, no problem. That's okay. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. I know it's a long night for you. Andrew, was there anything urgent that I missed?
No, I think
Okay.
the summary is a lot of focus and thinking about safety more than what SEAC can learn. And so we'd like to see a system that will empower learning and allow us to move beyond the safety kind of concerns in terms of staff ratios and resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Virtually number 22, Shauna.
Shauna, tell me when Shauna is with us.
I don't see Shauna online, so I have admitted David, who is next on the list.
David.
I have as well.
Okay, David, you're there?
I'm here.
Hi, David. My name is David, but I got it first. I'm the chair of SEAC. Welcome. You've got a room full of people here to listen, and I'm also online. I apologize for the delay. Because the TDSB would not agree with SEAC that you be able to watch the rest of the meeting. You may not have heard the ground rules that we asked. Please don't mention names of any students, including your child, or teacher or school. You got 3 minutes. When it's up, I'm going to let you know. And then if you've got more that you want to present, you can send your remarks in, and we'll certainly read them.
Thank you, David.
Go for it, David.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is David Allard. I'm the father of a son with special needs who attends one of the schools at the center of tonight's discussion. I'm joining virtually while traveling for work. We'll just start by telling you something about my son. Every single day, my son faces challenges that most of us will never fully understand. Getting up, getting out, navigating a world that wasn't designed for how his mind works. And he does it anyway, with a quiet, relentless bravery that honestly inspires me every day. He doesn't ask for the world to be easier. He just asks for the tools to meet it. And his school gives him those tools. And because of that, my son is okay. He's on a path, he's progressing. But the current decision to restrict grade 9 enrollment puts that path at risk. As enrollment shrinks, teachers are reassigned, programs are cut, and the specialized environment that makes these schools work begins to hollow out from the inside. My son's future doesn't disappear overnight. It just quietly narrows. And for the students who haven't arrived yet, the door may simply never open for them. And that's really who I think we are here for tonight. I'm sure you've heard from parents about what these schools mean in human terms. And I want to take a more fiscal case because the numbers are as compelling as the stories. But first, the mission. The TDSB's own special education plan states that its purpose is to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and values they need to become responsible members of a democratic society, and explicitly affirms this extends to students with special education needs. The board's values include equity, accessibility, and partnership with families. Closing these schools' pipelines and reducing their resources is a direct betrayal of that mission. Research from CAMH and ICES, which I know this group are familiar with, found that adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities are nearly 4 times more likely to become high-cost healthcare patients, and more than 1 in 3 fall into that category. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Structured programming, proactive support early in life is what prevents these costs from compounding later. And that is not a social argument, that's a fiscal one. According to Inclusion Canada, only 25.5% of working age adults with intellectual disabilities have paid employment versus a national average of 75.5%. They earn 33 cents for every dollar a non-disabled peer earns. The cost of that gap in ODSP, in healthcare, in lost tax revenue is carried by Ontario taxpayers for a lifetime.
David, the last thing in the world I want to do is to interrupt you because you're making such important points. But we're over your time, and I'm wondering if you could make a concluding point and then send us your remarks so we can be enriched by all of them.
For sure.
And I apologize.
My son is brave every day, and just by showing up. And tonight, I'm really asking this committee and the TDSB to be brave too. Please remind the TDSB of its own stated mission. Stand up for the students who haven't arrived yet, but desperately need these schools to be there when they do. Don't let the next child like mine lose the chance my son was given. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, I have virtually number 24, Shayna.
Shayna. Tell me when Shayna's with us. How many more presenters do we have on the list? 3.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. All right. Shayna, you're with us?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm David Lepofsky. I'm the chair of SEAC. Thank you for waiting, and we apologize for the delay. You get 3 minutes. I'm going to interrupt you when that's up and ask you if you can wind up. But if you've got more to say, and we fully understand if you do, you can send in your written remarks and we'll read them. And please don't mention names of students or including your child or teachers or schools. Okay, go for it. It's all yours.
Yes. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here. My son has autism and is currently in senior kindergarten. He's preparing to go to grade 1 this September, and I'm here tonight because I'm deeply worried about what this transition is going to look like for him. I want to start by saying that the teachers and the EA at his class has tried to be supportive. They care about my son, but they're also operating under the budget and constraints set. And there is only so much they can do within a system that does not give them enough resources. This is not a complaint about my school. This is just something I am worried about as a parent, as my son is going to grade 1. He has 1 EA right now, which would be taken away when he goes to grade 1, and there would be nobody to help him with the transition activity. And in grade 1, the classroom is no longer self-sustained, self-contained, the way it is in kindergarten. My son will have to walk around to go to bathroom on his own, which is somewhere else in the building. And for most children, this might be nothing, but for my son and kids like my son who have autism, it's a great deal of anxiety and confusion. They would also have to go to the lunchroom by their own, which is also overwhelming. Now, there is something else I also wanted to talk about, which is how difficult it is for us parents to find out what help is available. The information is completely fragmented. There is no roadmap, not a single place where parents can go to understand what resources exist. I know that the resources do exist, but it's just that there is no way for us to figure out where it exists. And the only way I have found out, even about this meeting, is if you are talking to parents who are connected and who know. And there are a lot of parents like me who have no idea about what is happening and they would want to advocate. So that is something, if we can work on, just having access to information, that would be very helpful as a first step. And again, beyond the EA support, my son also needs access to the SLP and occupational therapy. And these services are either unavailable or so stretched that they are practically non-existent. Our school listens. I'm very grateful for that. But the broader system is making it very difficult to advocate. Waitlist for assessment stretch on for a month. And I have to constantly re-explain what my son needs. And I need to re-advocate again and again about this. And I just want some kind of help for the kids with autism or any other disability going into the next grade where they would want more support to have, like, can we have more dedicated EA support for kids to at least help them navigate through the system when they have tendency to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. The education part, honestly, at this part comes secondary to me. I am more worried about the safety aspect and him getting overwhelmed and not having access to the support that he needs.
Okay, Shada, thank you very much. That's been
Yes,
3
of course.
minutes. If you could just wrap up, if you've got a final point, that would be fantastic.
No, that's all I have.
That's great.
But mostly what I would say is having access to information in one consolidated place would be the number one thing that I would be asking for.
This committee's been pressing that very issue for a decade. We're with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
All
Shada.
right, and you're getting a round of applause. And next is going to be
Virtually number 25, Kristen.
Krista, number 25. I sound like a bingo game caller, I swear. Let me know when Krista's with us, please.
Hi,
Krista, you're there?
I'm here. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
my name's David Lepovsky. I'm the chair of the Special Ed Advisory Committee. Got a room full of people ready to hear from you. I apologize for the delay. And I apologize that we could only give each speaker 3 minutes. So when your 3 minutes is up, I'm going to jump in and ask you to make your concluding point.
Thank
Ready
you.
to go?
Ready to go. Okay.
Let her rip.
Okay, so I have two children in the TDSB. My youngest has Down syndrome. He's currently in senior kindergarten, and we advocated to have him placed in a regular classroom. The barriers have been endless. So let's start with issue number 1. So the TDSB conquers and divides. My recommendation would be that I'm urging parents to initiate an accessibility committee in their schools. We organized in October 2025. We have 41 members with significant external support. Our last campaign garnered well over 200 emails confirmed by the superintendent. It unifies and it solidifies. We have a co-learning model that expands scope and therefore accessibility practices. We operate using parent consultations. So we discuss IPRC outcomes, email response times, etc. It offers consistency. We recently had a workshop by Arch Disability Law Center that catered to us. The presentation was titled Inclusive Education and the Duty to Accommodate. It's available on their YouTube channel if you're interested. And then problem 2, lack of support and timely and informed transitions at school start. So for example, SK to grade 1, recommendation is school supports and safety plans should be established the year prior, even if enrollment has not yet been solidified. Schools should be aware of incoming needs and address them accordingly, prioritizing safety. Problem number 3, neglect of essential safety planning with an over-reliance on parents to determine how to address needs and proxy. Recommendations, educating staff on their roles and responsibilities, which should be ongoing, school administration to coordinate and monitor special education progress, establish checkpoints, determine appropriate administrative deadlines and response times, and open and transparent communication with parents. And then translate that parent feedback to school practice. Problem 4, lack of accountability on behalf of special education staff allows them to play on unequal power dynamics, specifically during IPRC and SST meetings. Recommendations, staff preparedness, for example, reading the student profile prior to the meeting, Redistribution of power in the IPRC. So hosting principal relies on special education consultant for school support, so they're unlikely to stand in opposition. We need true neutral parties not employed by the TDSB. Our annual reviews of special education consultant decisions, so like meeting minutes to ensure discussion remains productive, appropriate, and professional, free from manipulation and coercion. Educational outcomes from IPRC decisions should be made explicit. So if they're receiving a diploma, certificate, or certificate of accomplishment, and then consistent cultural competency training. Problem number 5, special education processes lack specificity. So the categories of exceptionality are very subjective, inaccurate, and deficit-based definitions. So I would call for detailed and transparent definitions with updated terminology, eradicating terms like severe disability and discussing things like cognitive potential. Problem 6, barriers navigating special education. To minimize those barriers for parents, having page limits on special education documentation. Special education plan is 232 pages. Remove TDSB policy. Increase parent education opportunities, so outsourcing partnerships with ARCH, AOD Alliance, etc. And then the last thing was recent ministry data was presented on EQAO at our recent council meeting, and like on EQAO results and student well-being. So I would also recommend that we critically engage with data. Who is being represented in the data, who is not, how are we tracking the well-being of students with disabilities? And then is that census detecting the well-being being conducted in other formats for children with accessibility needs? And that's that.
Thank you very much. That was jam full of amazing. Thank you. You're getting a big round of applause and
Thank
some cheers. Thank you
much.
very much for joining us.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for the opportunity. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, Kristen. Next up, number 26 virtually, I have Huria.
Maria?
And David, I'm just going to interrupt before the next speaker to say I have told all the people in the waiting room that they have 3 minutes, that you'll stop them at that point with a wrap up and to send anything that they didn't cover.
Okay,
to me.
excellent. Thank you. That is a polite way of telling me I don't have to say it, and I get the hint. It's a good hint. Excellent. So hurry up. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Hey,
So,
go for I'm David Lepovsky. I'm the chair here. We welcome you and go for it.
yeah, thank you. My son is 13 years old. He's in grade 8, going to grade 9. So, I have choose a placement for him, which is I told the school, and that was during the SST meeting. So they told me that they sent me a paper and they said, "Oh, we'll choose a different school, which is that best placement for him." And I declined that, and I explained why. And I said, "I need the other school that I choose it," but they keep forcing me to accept it. And then they said, "Okay." I said, "I'm not gonna sign nothing until I receive the psychological assessment result, which is." Today they sent it to me and they said we're gonna have another meeting. So my question is, why is that I'm not being heard? Why they don't like I'm his mother and I know what is the best for him, even though they are the teachers and the doctors. Thank you for everything, but I want them to hear me. I want to feel comfortable. And this is not the first time. Even for the psychological assessment, the last time he did it when he was in kindergarten, 2018. I requested recently in September 2026. He just did it. They just did it right now. So this is the only thing I'm asking. Why they forcing me to accept a placement that I don't want it? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up.
Sorry, Jordan, I'm just going to, there are a lot of people who aren't in the waiting room right now. So I'm just going to tell you that Charlotte is the next admission.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Okay.
We have Charlotte or not
Charlotte
yet?
there?
Charlotte, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey there, I'm David We're all waiting for each other. Sorry about that. I'm David Lepofsky. I'm the chair here. Welcome aboard and feel free to get started.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just going to start my video there. Good evening. My name is Charlotte. I'm the parent of 4 children aged 16, 15, 12, and 7. And this year we have the somewhat hilarious circumstance of having all 4 children in 4 different TDSB schools. So the mornings in our home are super laid back. One of my children, my 15-year-old son, is profoundly intellectually disabled by a rare disease, and he also has autism spectrum disorder. He's been in the public school system for 11 years. Each year has been tremendously challenging. The TDSB practices in place to identify a child's exceptionality are wildly demoralizing, in particular when a parent comes into the school board with reports and diagnoses in hand and are still made to wait, in our case, 1.5 school years and wait and see in the face of the apparently throwaway slogan that early intervention is key. They set us off on the wrong foot often. Placements are further demoralizing, and programming as children age even more so. My son Isaiah was made to wait 6 years and 11 months for funding via the Ontario Autism Program. That funding came magically after he reached the age of 12, at which time he's expected to be less autistic, more capable, and therefore in need of less funding. This year, my son entered high school, grade 9, in a DDISP, which has amounted to nothing more than childcare. The programming is both rudderless and non-existent. Parent input is not considered. And this year I've received an email along the lines of, kindly send your son with a second lunch tomorrow, as he tends to get bored in the afternoon. He's also eloped several times physically from school property, somehow traveling more than 500 meters away from the school on one occasion before I was able to locate him on an AirTag. We've had the alphabet soup of acronym named meetings with the board, and we've made our suggestions rooting and actually knowing our son well. In particular, we've asked for integration, and we've asked that he be given real life tasks to perform in the context of his daily programming, which is truly where he thrives. The issue is not a lack of desire on the part of his educators. The issue is people power, and at the high school level, I have learned buy-in from admin. Year over year, for 11 years, we have heard all about all of the shortages of staffing, and in particular, educational support staff, as the basis for the lack of programming and initiatives. Our son's high school experience has only just begun, as he'll be retained as a student until he's 21, and I refuse to allow it to be an experience that doesn't capture the entirety of his abilities now and foster new ones going forward. The programming for ISPs is not conducted in consultation with parents who arguably know their children and their needs better than most. My recommendations are to create a mandatory parent input protocol in devising programming specific to a child's needs, abilities, and goals. And rather than write the decisions into an IEP that is ignored typically at every turn, to make a child's successes contingent on the adherence to an IEP, a mandatory requirement of the school and the board. In other words, to make loss of learning a liability to the board the same way that the board recognizes injury as a liability on their part. To hire and maintain more educational support staff, to sufficiently train them, to ensure measures are in place to prevent burnout, and more importantly, the types of injuries that I have seen sustained by these hardworking individuals. I'll make it very clear that support staff bear the brunt of the shortcomings of this incumbent government. Children are in desperate need of support. We fail to provide it, and then very quickly we see the consequences of the lack of support, the lack of intervention, and the lack of programming. In our case, in our home of 6 people, when Isaiah is struggling, it reverberates through our home, and then all 6 of us are struggling alongside him. Finally, as it relates to the mandatory attendance requirements tabled today at Paul Calandra's press conference, as a mature part-time undergrad student with significant family responsibilities and different circumstances at the University of Toronto with a 3.5 GPA, my attendance is far from perfect, and were it to impact my grades, I wouldn't be able to attend school anymore. Attendance is a privilege that is not afforded to everyone for a variety of reasons. Attendance should not be a barrier to success for certain of the TDSB students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So Jordan, I'm going to just jump in because
Please
there are
do,
a
Leanne.
number
You
of people
can.
who haven't stayed with us. So I'm going to say that Tanusri is next, and I'm just in the process of admitting.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. I'm David Lepovsky. I'm the chair of the Special Ed Advisory Committee, and we welcome you. Please feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you. Our child was in a triple grade 6, 7, 8 combined grades gifted classroom in September 2026 with one teacher. Younger peers from the school community who had been identified as gifted were not allowed to attend their own school and were offered placement elsewhere instead. It is unfair to the teacher to have to teach students with multiple exceptionalities in a very large and demanding classroom environment, which requires depth, breadth, and pace for each individual student, each of whom has their own individualized IEP. Less than 2 weeks ago, the principal from my child's school came into the classroom and let the children know that the program is being dismantled from the local school as of September 2026. A grade 6 student who was in the classroom at the time, quote, burst into tears. That was told by my child. My own child is aging out, and I'm sharing this information with you because I need you to appreciate the impact this is having on the emotional well-being of additional children in the school beyond my own child. I feel that the school system at the moment is being treated like a business and in a CEO type of environment. I even heard the word CEO in the news earlier today, as opposed to child-centered decision-making. The supervisor, Rohit, does not respond to any emails. His very high salary could be used by the TDSB to purchase resources for students such as computers. When I'm asking questions of the superintendent, the email responses that I'm receiving are form responses as opposed to actually answering my question. So, for example, I was sent a very patronizing email explaining to me what an IEP is instead of answering the following question. My question was, how many triple grade gifted classrooms were in place in September 2026? What was the racial profile of the students at these schools? Why has my question still not been answered as of the 13th of April, 2026 by the TDSB staff? If they didn't know the answer to the question, it is their job to find out the answer and communicate it to the parent community. The superintendent has a responsibility to build community and to build relationships, especially when I initiated a meeting with another parent, other parents, and Black community members who are very professional members of the community within that small school catchment area. The meeting initially took place with respect and professionalism. A follow-up meeting was prevented from happening with all of us. The superintendent only agreed to meet with me by myself and with another parent by themselves. That is not a way to build community and professionalism.
I'm going to just interrupt and ask if you could make your 3 minutes up. If you can make one last point, and feel free to send in all of your remarks, and we'll read them after.
I appreciate that.
Okay, and I apologize.
That's okay. No, I appreciate your late evening. Our child is a biracial student with a dual exceptionality. Targeting the program at their school comes across as discriminatory from my perspective, as the school has its needs socially and economically, requiring more support and not less. I also don't believe a special education classroom would be treated in the same way with cuts as the gifted programming is currently being handled at my child's school. As a K-8 school, which is ideal for supporting the educational well-being of children, research shows how shifting children from school to school is disruptive and puts them at risk. For example, school mobility and developmental outcomes in young adulthood by the PMC at the elementary level. I don't believe that Forest Hills gifted programming would be treated in the same manner as our child's school. The voice of racialized parents and students matter too. The community deserves continuity. I have answers to barriers and ways to make things better, and I'm very happy to send that in by email.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And you're getting a round of applause.
Seriously, I can't hear anything because I'm not allowed to attend the meeting, apparently the same as a person in person. So that's an example yet again of a systemic barrier.
Okay,
Not created by you, created by the TDSB clearly.
If you could send in your remarks, it would really help us so that we could review anything that you weren't able to cover in the time you had. Thank
Who
you
do I
very
send it
much.
to Nora or to somebody else? I don't know who's managing the wait room.
Email them to Leanne and she will share them with us.
Okay, Leanne.
Yeah, Leanne Dixon.
I have Jonathan joining
All
us
right,
now.
Leanne, could you just for the benefit of people here, how many have we got left online?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, 6, and then we will wrap up. All right, Jonathan.
Hi there. I'm Jonathan Lee. Thank you for taking the extra time tonight. My son has a physical disability and uses a wheelchair. He attends a school in the TDSB defined as accessible, but that definition has major gaps. So, for example, it only requires one barrier-free entrance, and it doesn't matter if that entrance is way down at the end of the school or is otherwise inconvenient. That definition requires an accessible path to the school, but it doesn't say anything about what happens inside the school. There's no accessibility requirements for hallway doors, classroom doors, or anything. It requires an elevator, but not access to every floor. And there's no requirements about age, maintenance, or what to do when that elevator isn't working. So these gaps drive de facto segregation of people with disabilities from the rest of the community and school. So I strongly recommend that we add requirements for central exterior accessibility, interior accessibility, and equipment reliability to the TDSB's definition of accessible. This definition also ignores staffing needs. So accessibility will always involve a combination of facilities and staffing. And if you scrimp on one, you have to do more of the other one. And if you scrimp too much, the other one doesn't work. So you need both of these things to work in tandem together. So I also strongly recommend adding minimum staffing requirements to the TDSB's definition of accessible. An accessible building can never be an accessible learning environment without enough staff to support the students there. So these are proactive solutions, I think, that can prevent barriers before they become a problem. My son and we've run into several issues that could have been avoided if someone had just taken a few proactive steps ahead of time. Instead, the TDSB waited until these problems actually became a reality. And at that point, solutions took a lot of time and bureaucracy to get through. And some things never even got fixed in the first couple of years of school. So I hope our goal is to make sure that everyone in our communities can fully participate in the TDSB, and not just to make the day-to-day easier, but as an investment into our children. We want independence and self-sufficiency for our children, so they become productive and self-sufficient members of society. And so we need to build a school where that's possible. The current definition doesn't do that. Right now we're saying, oh, your friends can use door 3 to go inside, but you have to go over to door 7. You can't go to the library today because your class went to the library and the elevator's broken. You can't take attendance to the office like all of your friends do every day because there's too many doors without power buttons in the way. We're saying you don't belong here. You should be segregated over there. And I'm grateful we're having this conversation because I think these kinds of definitions to the changes to the definition of accessibility could really help us make that more of a reality if we think proactively about these kinds of things. And just to look at this from a slightly different angle, it's not just about the students, it's also about the staff themselves. Our school had a vice principal who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and progressed to her needing a walker and a wheelchair. This is in an accessible school in TDSB. She was unable to get sufficient support and she had to transfer school boards. So we're losing talent because of this sort of thing. Every single one of us is one diagnosis or one slip on the ice away from joining the disabled community. And so this affects all of us. Our entire community benefits when we integrate people like my son into the community and make sure they have a place to go and belong.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leanne.
I have Katerina is next.
Katerina, tell me when Katerina's on with us.
Hello.
Hello, Katerina. I'm David Lepovsky. I'm the chair. You got 3 minutes. Feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you. We have a child who is now in grade 2 who has an autism diagnosis that we received at just over 24 months. When we started her in JK, we immediately approached the school asking for an IEP and an IPRC. We were told, no, that does not happen until they reach grade 1. What this does is basically prevents 2 years of, being placed on wait lists for things like OT and speech therapy. And when we did request the IPRC, we pushed very hard and finally got agreement in grade 1. And we were told by the VP of the time that basically the only way to get an IPRC was to have it requested by the principal, which is counter to what is actually on the website. Luckily, we actually knew that we had the right to ask for one, so we did. By the time we got the IEP, we were asked during the IPRC, do we really want to put a label of autism on our child? The answer to that question is yes, because she is. So there seems to be some kind of resistance at the admin level to any kind of IPRC or IEP at anything earlier than grade 1, which puts our kids 2 years behind at the start. And it seems to be delayed. It seems to be related to a stigma against autism, or perhaps not recognizing autism as the disability that it is. Once we did get the IPRC and our child was granted the exceptionality, we were pushed very hard to consider an autism placement rather than a mainstream class, despite our child being verbal, literate, numerate, and able to be independent in the classroom. We don't understand why that would be suggested, because the only reason we could come up with is that it's too difficult to have a child with medium to low support needs who has autism in a regular classroom. That probably has something to do with the lack of support, the lack of EAs in the classroom, the lack of EAs in the school overall, also who lack training. So it appears that we were offered basically a contained class or pretty much zero support, also known as quote unquote indirect support, which makes the tiers written up on the website also kind of a bit of a joke. The teachers don't have enough time in the classroom. Our particular child is in a classroom with multiple children, at least 4, perhaps 5, who have special needs. The teacher is obviously unable to do differentiated instruction of any kind with 5 children in her classroom. Just due to the time constraints, that means that the ratio of student to teacher is way too high if you're not going to provide additional EA support. Yard and lunchroom supervision. Our child has been experiencing bullying for 2 years. In the lunchroom and in the yard, the ratio of supervisors to children is far too low. Our child alone throughout grade 1 experienced punching, kicking, tackling, being spit on, choked. And this is to say nothing of the actual verbal abuse that she received. And of course, being good parents, we told her, find a safe adult, tell them what happened. We were told by our child, I couldn't see a grown-up anywhere.
I know that this is like totally inadequate amount of time, but your 3 minutes are up. So could I get you to just wrap up with a final point or two?
The final point is that our child, the whole point is that the combating bullying has been focused on making our child work on her quote unquote social skills and to be less autistic presenting. I want to know, where is the time spent on all of the other students who are neurotypical on their social skills to prevent them from bullying and endangering our children?
Very good point. Getting a round of applause. For any points you weren't able to include in the time you had, feel free to send us any written remarks for us all to look at. Thank you so much, and thanks for waiting so late in the evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have Jackie online now.
Jackie, hi, I'm David Lepovsky. I'm chair of SEAC. Thank you so much for waiting, and feel free to get going when you're ready.
Okay, thank you so much for continuing to be here and to listening to everybody. My name is Jackie, and I have 3 kids in the TDSB. My middle daughter, who's now in grade 8, struggled greatly with reading. Level readers led to tears and fights, and basic sound to letter combinations were a struggle for many years. In grade 2, she was placed in the Empower program, which was 2 to 3 times a week and about 7 students in a group. We saw no progress in her reading at all upon completion. At the IST meeting following a psych ed assessment of severe dyslexia, which we got privately, we were offered accommodations, software, and a modified academic program. This is all fine, but how was she going to learn how to read? There was silence. Eventually, the psychologist admitted she needed a high-frequency structured literacy program, but that they couldn't recommend anything because they cannot provide it. I have since learned that what she needed was a Tier 3 reading intervention, one-to-one daily structured literacy program to skilled mastery. The tiered approach to intervention estimates that about 5% of students will require such an intervention, and without that intervention, those 5% will be needlessly low literacy, if not illiterate. There are many proven research-based intervention programs, and many are available in school systems all around North America. We theoretically have some of these programs in the TDSB, but they are not offered across the board. There is often no one at schools to administer them, and there are many not offered at a Tier 3 level, as they are modified to Tier 2 in order to be offered to more kids, but less effectively. The only sure way to access a daily structured literacy intervention is to pay for it privately, which costs tens of thousands of dollars. This, as the Ontario Human Rights Council in the Right to Read report made clear, is a human rights issue. Families who possibly can leave the public system, and many go into debt to teach their children how to read. Those who cannot have children who fall further behind with deteriorating mental health and who frankly hate school. All these children need emergency intervention, and they need it now. My suggestions to mitigate the barrier are: 1, we need to offer reading assessments for students at least up to grade 8, not stopping at grade 2. We've made great strides in the K-2 space for assessment, and that's provincial. But our older kids who went through the pandemic are falling further behind, and we don't even know who they are. Our number 2 suggestion is that we need to have a genuine Tier 3 intervention available for our Tier 2 resistant students with structured literacy, trained practitioners, 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, administered daily, although that can be in blocks. That works too. We know how to teach these students how to read. This is a solvable problem for an education system, and I'm hopeful it can happen. Thank you very much for listening and for staying so late.
Thank you so much. You are getting a round of applause. All right, Leanne.
Yun Liu.
Okay, tell me when our speaker's here. Are you, Leanne? Sorry,
Yep.
Leanne, the name.
Yun Liu is here.
Okay, good. Welcome. My name's David Lepofsky. You can start whenever you're ready. And thank you for waiting so late in the evening. I believe you get the award of our second last speaker, and I apologize. It's been such a long wait.
Sorry, Yun Liu, you are muted.
Yeah, you're muted. We're not hearing you. Leanne, can you maybe message her that?
Yeah. There we are.
Oh, there you are. All right, now we can hear you. Now you can start.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the committee to organize this meeting. I have been waiting for this moment for over 4 years. My older daughter is high function autistic with behavioral issue, but her legal rights in TDSB was ignored by the previous high school. The communication between school and family was blocked for different kind of reasons or excuses. The school staff could not communicate with each other even properly, which caused a huge emotional damage to my daughter because she's sensitive, so that she quit school for half a year. So I want to advocate for autistic families that as an important role in education for these students, TDSB staff should always aware its social responsibility and improve the service. So I suggest that TDSB can enhance the awareness of the autism, The April 2nd World Autism Day should be announced in better way than just mentioned in an email to remind the staff and other students that autism is a neurological disorder. It is invisible, but affects how the brain functions. Second, establish a green communication channel for families to track their children's performance in school by using ABC chart, instead of setting barriers by using wrong terms of family law or policies. Allow families to volunteer in the class sometimes to understand better where their children's strengths and weakness, barriers, and the triggers in TDSB learning environment, so that they can provide valuable feedback or suggestion to the school and discuss with third-party service providers to build, update, and adjust the plan of care and support these vulnerable students on time. Fourth, design a system to collect the tickets from these families to address the issue or barriers and use right policies and resources to resolve the issue as quick as possible. And the database of these tickets can be further analyzed and provide valuable feedback as well. Our bad experience with TDSB previous high school is documented in Children Aid Society, Ontario Superior Court of Justice, and the mental health care system. But there is no way to hold anyone in TDSB accountability. And Albanson, Ontario, we hold the boundaries for the safety of our children and the society. We don't want our children to hurt any people when they're emotional. The 2018 Toronto van attack happened in front of TDSB building is enough to address the issue exists in the system. The early intervention of these autistic people should be is very important. These suggestions are made based on my living experience with my autistic daughter. 15 years working experience in supply chain management, 9 years working experience in TDSB in different positions, and the business management and the personal support worker study in Seneca College, and 4 years volunteer experience in the Toronto Zoo. No matter what organization.
I'm going to interrupt you, and I apologize. If you could just make one more point and then wrap up. Your time's up, and you could send in your remarks to us. Go for it.
Only 2 more sentences. Okay, thank you
sure,
for reminding me. No matter what organization or system I deal with, we all somehow related to public education. No matter what TDSB job I deal with, I feel the quality of internal service in the system can affect me directly or indirectly. Education is the key for all these organizational systems to be successful. So we need a good education and good workers for the sustainable society. So that's all. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, if you need more details, I just call me or email me. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, and you got a round of applause. Now, Leanne, we have one more speaker, is it?
We have 2. We have Dora.
Shows I can't count, which is not good to confess at TDSB where I graduated. All right, tell me when we're ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening. I'm David Lepovsky. I'm the chair here, and we welcome you. Feel free to get started. Thanks so much for waiting so long.
No problem. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Dora. I stand here before you as a parent to advocate for students with special needs / autism who are being failed by the current system due to critical shortages in resources and supports. Too many students are falling through the cracks, which is unacceptable. Schools must be safe with supportive environments, yet staff cuts have created a climate of stress and anxiety for our most vulnerable students, undermining their ability to learn. Furthermore, students are being placed in programs that do not meet their needs. simply because of resource gaps. As well, currently students in mild intellectual disability placements receive far less support than these in developmental disability placements. This inequity must be addressed urgently. Supports are not a luxury. They are a lifeline essential to our children's development, dignity, and future. We cannot afford the consequences. I urge you to invest in our children and restore the support they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dora.
And Leanne, our next
And
speaker.
for our last person in the waiting room is Millie or Melly. I'm not sure.
Nellie. All right.
Sorry.
Tell me when you're there. Nellie, do you hear me?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
There you are.
There we
Hi,
go.
welcome.
Great.
I'm David Lepofsky. I'm the chair here. I welcome you. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thanks for
For
listening.
no reason that you are responsible for, you are our last speaker, and we're all going to be listening very attentively. So feel
Thank
free to
you.
get started when you're ready.
Thank you. I will. Hello, my name is Malie Hutton, and I'm here along with my wife Marisha speaking to you this evening in support of the programming my son has received at his school and why we believe it's essential that this programming continue. We adopted our child at age 10 months and he's now 16. Along his educational journey, he's faced many challenges within the regular classroom environment. Diagnosed with central auditory processing disorder, ADHD, and mild dyslexia, made life inside the larger classroom impossible for him to navigate. The noise was overwhelming, the pace too fast, and the whole experience of being in a classroom was unpleasant for him, leading him to want to escape and not be part of learning at all. He's a sweet and polite child who found himself frustrated, angry, and upset on an almost daily basis in JK through grade 1. His experience in school was not like his experience in any other environment. He was a volunteer at our local farmers market, a leader and a social mayor in the school, but in the classroom, frustration and loneliness was his experience. The Toronto District School Board's mission statement is to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement, prioritizing equity, mental health, and inclusive learning environments. In spite of all this, after many meetings in JK, SK, and grade 1, and much effort on our behalf to secure an IEP and get him the support he needed, the principal told us that if you can afford it, you should send your kid to a private school. Our experience was that the TDSB could not provide what our child needed, and so we made the difficult and costly decision to seek alternative education for him. At Arrowsmith School, we saw how the small classroom and deep understanding of students with special needs could turn a kid's experience of learning around. When it came time for him to attend high school, we very nervously looked again to the TDSB. It was then that my wife found the high school that our son now attends, by chance actually, in a conversation in the dog park. He attends a small learning community in the east end of the city that offers schooling at locally developed, workplace, and applied levels. This school has changed our son's life. The teachers are phenomenal, the class sizes are small and allow students with complex profiles to learn. Our son has passed every class, every semester since he arrived in 2024 and is now fully on track to complete his Ontario Secondary School diploma next year. He has the possibility of college ahead of him. He is confident and can grasp material well if given the environment and the support to do so. He gets out of bed every day and goes to school with joy. So why are we here? We recently received a letter from the TDSB that our son's school will not be taking in a grade 9 cohort and the future of the school is in jeopardy. We are here tonight to make the strongest case we can for a reverse in this thinking. It is not that the schools are not needed. It is that parents do not know where to find them or that they exist. We know from our personal experience that endless hours of trying to find a school that could provide for our son what this school has now provided. No one at his TDSB Grade 1 school ever suggested or helped us find another TDSB school that might have been suitable. Wouldn't that be obvious that TDSB schools would know how to direct parents to other TDSB schools? We were met like our son was the only LD child they had ever encountered, and this was just our local TDSB school. Our plea is to please don't close these essential schools. Put more time and resources into advertising that they exist. Our runaround inside the TDSB during those pre-high school years was unnecessary, exhausting, and very costly. Please make sure more school-to-school and community connections are made and keep schools open that serve students with special needs with phenomenal staff. We owe our students their education, and we owe them the schools and the teachers that allow them to truly access it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You're getting a round of applause, and I apologize for mutilating your name.
No
Ladies,
problem.
as I understand it, we've now gone through our list of presenters. I'm going to take a grand total of 2 minutes to wrap up, and I'm not going to seek a motion to adjourn, because if anyone doesn't want to adjourn, they're welcome to stay. I want to thank everyone here, the staff, SEAC members, and most of all, parents and members of the public. I'm going to get personal for a minute. When I was a kid, I was born with lousy eyesight, and it was getting worse over time. The single reason I was able to succeed is I had an amazing mom. She was an amazing mom who wanted me to do the best I could do the best I could do, and be the best I could be. But she also, by her example, showed me what it meant to fight to make sure I got those opportunities. And I miss her every day. But in this room and over this Zoom, I am meeting parents just like her. I am meeting parents. We are all meeting parents with the same drive, the same passion, the same dedication, the same love, the same capacity, no matter how hard it is, to take that step forward and make that argument or press for that opportunity, no matter how worrisome, uncertain, stressful it all may be. And also parents who, like my mom, saw that there were good people at the school board who wanted to work with me and wanted to help me succeed. Parents, just you parents like my mom, also knew to recognize where things went well as where things are ridiculously frustrating. And frankly, parents, my mom, just like you, had her moments where she just couldn't take it, but she persevered just like you do. And your kids are the ones who are the beneficiaries of that gift. So I can only say, on behalf of all of them, all of your kids, having been one of those kids, thank you. I want to thank everybody for the time we've spent here. I want to tell you quickly what we are going to do. The first item on the agenda at our May meeting is to go around the table and to have every member of our SEAC, whether in person or online, simply give their reflections on what they've heard and what they think we need to do next. So it's going to be an open, unregulated discussion where we are going to draw on what all of you said. We've done it before. We're going to do it again. I regret you can't watch us on the TDSB's live stream, but you're all welcome to come here to see what we do. And we're going to work with the staff as best we can to come up with constructive ideas to try to make changes that are within the capacity of the TDSB. And the final thing I want to say is this. Having sat through all of this, the only thing any one of us could think, I believe, I'm speaking for all of you, even though I haven't asked you, is it's so important that we have all heard from all these parents. It's so important that they had the opportunity, at least in this room, to hear from each other. I regret online they didn't. But I say to the 3 senior executives at the Toronto District School Board who are sitting here and who are so dedicated, to our kids' education. The next time we want to hold one of these meetings, please don't oppose it. Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to adjourn this important meeting. We'll see you next month.